Surf's up, guys? It's Mauisnake here for the Mauisnake Show. And first thing I want to say is thank you guys for your support on the first handful of episodes. Been really encouraging, the feedback that I've been getting. But also, be sure to subscribe if you guys haven't by now. Really appreciate that. Want to see my numbers go up this year. And, if I get a big enough fan base, then you can expect much more content. Like, that is a given. And that positive reinforcement goes a long way for people like myself. And I would definitely really appreciate to see that number, that ticker go up. But two Canadian guests for this episode. First off, we got Scrawny. He's going to be ranking the ESL Pro League groups with me in terms of easiest to predict and hardest to predict. Then he's going to be talking about what makes him such an excellent caster. I would consider him myself in that upper echelon, that highest tier right now of play-by-plays. And so we're going to hear about how he is his own biggest critic and everything that goes into it with him and Launders. And finally, he's going to talk about something that he really takes very seriously and something that, you could do too if you actually really want to follow along with CS in a different way, and that is HLTV Fantasy. And so we're going to hear about his strategy for the first group of the ESL Pro League draft. Second guess, also so special. First time this guy has ever done a podcast. It's NAF. I'm really excited to be bringing this one to you guys because NAF and I wanted to do this pod for months now. Finally found the time to do it. Finally linked our schedules, and he has a lot of info to bring from his time even before OpTic, that OpTic team that was able to take down Astralis in E-League Season 2, the Grand Slam winning Liquid lineup, and things that are even going on today with Liquid. And he even gives a little bit of a bite about what's going on with EG and why that deal fell through where he was going to be hopping over to that lineup. And I think that it's a ton of fun to get NAF on the mic because he's so mysterious. There's such a mystique surrounding him, and he even talks about what that mystique kind of is to him as and how he has actually embraced so many of the memes, the Sloth idea, all of that. So enjoy. We're recording this at 7:20 p.m. London time. It is, I think, 2:20 p.m. East Coast America time, where Scrawny is, on Tuesday, February 21st, 2023. Welcome, Scrawny. How are you doing?
Oh, thank you, Maui. Yes. It is indeed 2:20 p.m. Canadian time here on the East Coast, my friend.
You say Canadian time, but I think NAF was recording this from the West Coast of Canada, so it's not actually a unified time, though.
It's true. It's true. In fact, it's actually quite a divisive time in history, Mauisnake.
Well, we can all hope for unification of Ireland at another time. This isn't the podcast for something like that. But let's just jump into where maybe we actually can be a little bit divisive, and we can talk about Pro League, and we can talk about what we think are the hard groups, what we think are the easy groups, what our reads are on this situation, because Scrawny, even though you're a play-by-play caster, I value your opinion immensely. I think you have some of the stronger opinions of play-by-plays out there. You actually sometimes talk a little trash on Twitter from time to time, and I think that's really something that play-by-plays are usually just afraid of doing.
Yeah, I think our opinions are never valued, right? Because we're just the guys who talk fast and speak loudly. But I want to be the change that I want in the world. You gotta personify that. And so yeah, thank you for recognizing my efforts, dude. It is me going out on a limb as of late. I feel like I've made a name for myself, at least enough now, to share my opinions. And I always fact check them with you first, so it does make it easier.
Yeah. I mean, if I proofread it for you, maybe it'll turn some opinions down, but also, I mean, you'll have at least one person that's behind you. So it's like that meme, If there are no more Scrawny fans left, then I am gone from this world. Yeah.
Sure, man. I feel you.
Yeah. Okay, so the way that I wanted to frame this discussion was ranking the groups from like easiest to hardest. And I think that, actually that's kind of a vague way to do it in general. So how about where it's most clear versus the one where it's almost harder to read, okay? Does that work for you? Okay, so
yeah.
So let's go with which one we think is like the clearest, easiest to decide. So do you have an opinion about this first of which group is just like 1, 2, 3, 4? Those teams are going to make it. And actually, while you think of that, I will actually tell people how this Pro League season works. There's 32 teams that are involved. It is basically 4 group stage. It's one group stage, but it's like a 4 triple elim group stage. So it's like each group has 8 teams. It's A, B, C, D, and then all the matches are BO3, and 4 teams qualify from each group through the triple elim that ESL has set up. So, do you have your idea now for the group that's most obvious?
Sure, yeah, because you did give me the blueprint for this episode, and then right before I'm about to give you my answer, which I've prepared, you've just decided the parameters. But yeah, I'm still gonna stick with what I think is also kind of my initial reaction in terms of the easiest group, maybe to predict, and now just in terms of like clear-cuttedness. I'm gonna say Group C. I think Group C is actually the group that has some of the least competition really in it. There's a couple of question marks. So to me, right away, FaZe is number 1. Right, this is a group where they start versus Rooster, the winner of Pain and Ninjas right after. I don't see anything stopping them from getting to the upper final, and like you're talking about with format, right? Like either team who makes it to the upper final is moving forward, and then for that reason, there's just nobody here to stop them, right? We saw a little bit of success from Ninjas at the start in Katowice. Maybe they can press FaZe if some of those individuals are off, but nah, dude, I think this one's clean. FaZe number 1, no question there. I look to the underside of the bracket. Vitality to me is number 2. Yes, they had that huge choke versus Liquid. They weren't able to close that series. I think they absolutely should have maybe gone on into the finals of Kato. I had them painted as Kato grand finalists before that event started, just because of the way they begun the year with the victory over Heroic finally. So I still think Vitality have what it takes. Although, now in saying that, I did forget that Jax is actually here. So that does make things a little more interesting. But you know what? I rate Jax highly, so I'll stay on my opinion here and put Vitality 2. OG with a new in-game leader, I think, falls to NIP. So here's the final verdict, right? FaZe 1, Vitality 2, Ninjas 3, OG 4.
Oh, okay. Okay. I thought there were... I think that between OG and NIP, that's like the only thing that's a little bit interesting about this one. Personally, I think that I would like NIP to be that team, but I also think that with OG, it just felt like the no Nexa thing is where it's really confusing, and probably why I would want to put OG 4th off. But it's just like the opping situation. I think for OG is you've got basically the 3rd best opper in this group. Your structure would probably be worse than NIP's, and you would hope the teamwork would be better for NIP. But I actually think some of the individuals for OG I would rate pretty highly at this point, mostly just in the form of Flames and Dexter, I would say. But like with NIP, it seems like everybody's a little bit streakier. But I'll agree with that. I too thought Group C was the easiest to predict. I think it's just the easiest for FaZe. I think like in terms of 1 and 2, it's very, very obvious. But for NIP, you would hope now, because they've said that this is the roster with config that they're going to be playing with until the major, that you would expect that they're going to start ramping up slowly and just incrementally getting better.
Exactly. I mean, just the fact that coming into Kato, right, we were talking to Alexi after their success in the opening games, dude, and he was just saying how, like, they didn't even have all, like, detailed call-outs going into their nuke match. Config was, like, that fresh into the roster that there was still so many, like, easy things that I think they will have 100% smoothed out since then. The fact that they did so well at the start of Kato, I think is just indicative of potential here for the team. So yeah, I keep OG behind them just because, dude, if you had told me at the start of this year or like the end of 22 that Nexo was going to be out of competitive play by the time that we hit mid-February, I would have been pretty shocked by that. I was one of the people who I think kind of rated OG and believed in them moving forward, and thought Dexter, obviously, being such a good player, could elevate him. But yeah, weird one there. And just to quickly touch on the teams that we're not even talking about, dude, this is one of the groups where I have like zero faith in some of these potential underdog upsets, right? Like Zero Nation just like reverse swept an RMR qualifier even to get to America's RMR. Greyhound, unfortunately, time and time again, same story, nothing. And who is Rooster, boy? I don't even know. So yeah, this one's just pretty clear. Done.
Yeah. I don't think there's like the only other team you didn't mention, Pain. We also just really haven't seen them coming to play on the international stage too much. I think that they've kind of had a slew of just changes and problems. And I will say though, in the closed qualifier for the Americas, Skulls on their team did very well, and that's a name that I really am not too familiar with. And hopefully I find out more about this guy in the near future. But as it stands, the top four is very clear to me, and the bottom four is the weakest. And so yeah, this was kind of like the easiest group. No matter, it didn't matter even how you defined the word easy in this respect.
Right.
So I'll start with number two, with the team, or with the group that I think is also fairly clear cut. I think this one has a little bit more room for movement between the teams, but I would say that I'd say that Group A is also a little bit tough to read for number four. But the first three are pretty easy. But I'm not, or sorry, not number four. Basically, if like 4 and 5 can have a little bit of a dance there, that's where I think things get interesting. But to me, the top three are pretty obvious. G2, best team in the world, no doubts about that. And then I would put Outsiders right now as the second best team in this group. Would you agree with that, or would you give Cloud9 a little bit of credit?
Firstly, I agree. Group A is next up.
Okay.
Right, in terms of how clear things are. I want to put Outsiders as number 2. I don't put Cloud9 above them, but I do think that there's an interesting run here in Fnatic. I do think that to me is a big question mark with this. So let's agree G2 tops this group, like you said, right?
Yes.
They may have lost a map to Heroic, but they're still on this massive match streak. And we know what Cloud9 we got in Kato. So I still don't believe in the Buster. I don't need to talk shit. I'm sure you will for Cloud9.
Yep.
It's, to me, what's interesting here is the Fnatic run that could maybe upset things, because again, right, you just need to get to upper finals. When we look at that side of the Group A bracket, Fnatic have already beaten MIBR at the Katowice play-in, and Fnatic have also beaten Outsiders in a best of 3 at that very same event. Now, Fnatic and Outsiders actually have a really cool back and forth since the IEM Rio. There was this like 16-1, I think, blowout to Outsiders' favor. That was the one map that made me believe maybe I'm watching Major Champions. But then, I lost the plot and they kind of got murky again. That's a cool back and forth. I think that, we talk about how hard it is for a team to defeat Outsiders in their first outing, right? It's a team I think you need to learn how to play against. And when I go down the list of teams that have a decent head-to-head and also just a very regular head-to-head, Fnatic and Outsiders lock horns more frequently than a lot of other teams. So I think Mezzi's kind of got his understanding of how to play against it. And if there is a question up there, then I think Fnatic could actually end up stealing that second spot behind G2, just because of the fact that, again, you need to get to upper final, right? So the bracket works out to their favor if they can beat a team they've played against recently.
You're right.
Beaten recently, but again, overtime. So,
Yeah. The familiarity actually does give Fnatic an edge here that I'm glad you brought up. I wasn't really considering that. I just kind of looked at the overall strength. But now that you even look deeper at the bracket here, then I could actually see that run sort of happening.
Yeah.
I just think I think it's a bit treacherous for Fnatic. Like, I think even though they have played Outsiders, I also just think I just think that Outsiders are also maybe they're even harder to read now because Chiron's on the team, and then this team should be improving. Whereas to me, unfortunately, with Fnatic, I feel like they haven't necessarily shown me a ton at Kato, and I think that it's tough where I judge them based off of the loss to Complexity, for example, and that's one where it's like that's well beneath what I would assume Outsiders should be. Like that loss in the quality of play Fnatic didn't show. Or was where I think like Outsiders should just be cleaning this one up, even though you do bring up some great historical context.
So with that context in mind, I want that out there in case it does happen. But I'm still co-signing the Outsiders taking that victory as well, because the asterisk I put next to Fnatic is that even though they're capable of showing some good things and that they've got wins here and there, dude, Fnatic is a team that's so susceptible to blowout losses. Right? Like, this isn't a team that's always playing close maps. This is a team that can get to a third best of 3 because they just got smoked 16-5. And, like, they bounce back and whatnot, but, like, sometimes there's just huge holes in their game plan, and that costs them. So, I want it known that Fnatic has a decent head-to-head, but you're dead on with the Chiron inclusion. I mean, that kid scares me. He's just so, like, when he came out after the Kato, with the interview saying like, I knew it was going to be easier than everybody said.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, he's robotic in a certain way that I think that now that he's got a bit, he's got that behind him, more time with the team. He outperformed Fame, who like was nearly on for a major MVP performance back when they lifted the trophy in Rio. So yeah, this is a really good looking outsiders. And when it comes to Cloud9, I just expect them to get sent down to the lower bracket for this group. So I still have them going through. I think we're going to see a better version of them because, dude, there was so many teams in Kato that start their year there instead of Blast groups and have struggles. I put Maus in that category, Cloud9 in that category, Furia in that category, and there's so many teams back at Blast like Heroic and Liquid and even Navi that we kind of give this this grace to, where it's like, first event of the year. And look how much better they were at Kato.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, guess what? Now there's all these teams who looked poor in Kato, and this is the second event of the year, and they're going to be better. And I think Cloud9 are on that list.
It's worth bringing up, actually, that every team that was in the top 8 at Kato, with the one exception of Outsiders, is a Blast partner team. So there's obviously something to the fact that if you get some officials in, even if you didn't even look that good necessarily in all the officials, it's just the fact that you have those reps, and now you're in a mode, you're in a mindset that the teams that weren't ready or really are just coming off of essentially a player break and some practice, they just can't really compete right away. So yeah, let's see. Actually, I would say this though. I will say this. I think there's a little bit of worry in this group for Fnatic to get out. Like, I think so I'll go through it. Like 1 G2, 2 Outsiders, 3 Cloud9. Even though I have my doubts about them, I think the player quality is frequently just too high that they will make it through this. But I actually think that you think about Eternal Fire and what they did at the CCT event, and that's something that they're going to be able to build off of. And I think, like, I watched admittedly just a little bit of that. I watched mostly just the grand finals, honestly. And I saw like what they were able to do and kind of withstand in that game was pretty impressive. I mean, they did win it because they got a ninja defuse off, and if they didn't get that ninja defuse on XFloud, then they never would have even gotten to overtime, which is just in some ways the dumbest thing ever on BNE's part. But like, also they won the grand finals by playing 2 BO3s in a row, which is pretty impressive. You know, like that shows to me a lot of resilience. And I think that, like, if you talk about actually the pure riflers in this group, Xantares is like a top 5 rifler in this group. Like, you put a couple people from G2, you'd probably put Nico, you'd have to put Hunter right now. But then, like, in terms of the career, Xantares to me is better than JKS. JKS just had a great event, but his form might be really good. But Xantares was basically also the MVP of CCT, and so worse competition. But at the same time, I know that Xantares can actually do this versus anybody in the world. He's done it versus anybody in the world. He's not the question on this lineup for me, but it is just like, are the other people going to show up? Like, I think Emor had a pretty good event, which is pretty rare for him. XFloud actually looked like a viable player, even though I think he was kind of like the next one you would have kicked on this team if you wanted to make some other roster move.
Well, I mean, they kick them all interchangeably.
Yeah, they
really,
do.
So.
They're just cycling through Turkish players. They're just like whoever they can find in Istanbul.
I'm glad you bring up Eternal Fire here, just because I am kind of the same thought. I think that, we just mentioned how Blast officials can kind of rev you up for something, and you just prelude to the CCT event, which I think serves as their Blast/Kato, whatever, coming into Pro League. And Emor, dude, Emor looked crazy impressive. I mean, the fact that he was knocking on Xantares' door in terms of rating by the end of CCT, the second highest rated player for Eternal Fire, and honestly, just like a really good tradesman in entry fragging, right? Like impact, because he's getting involved consistently in rounds. It looks like Xantares has somebody to stand next to when he goes into a fight, which is, I think, a promising formula for Eternal Fire, enough so to capitalize on BNE. And remember, they beat Ents, like you said earlier in that day, although a weird Ents at the moment, admittedly. So I'm there with you. I think, again, we agree on this one, where it's G2 1, Outsiders 2, Cloud9 3, again, because of the nature of the bracket. And then Fnatic is under question.
Fnatic's 4, but it's like a shakier 4.
So I'll give a reason for the shake, dude. Okay, we want to talk numbers and individuals, bro. I have right now a player painted as just like falling off a cliff, and we need to talk about Fasher.
Yeah. Yep.
The interesting thing with Fnatic is that every player at the moment is kind of contributing, right? Like Nikadaz back at the Rio RMR was the reason that they kind of just like flew into it. His op impact CT side specifically, super unquestionable. and Mezzi's impact on T side, you know, with Roy's consistency. So it's like per half, Roy has a second-hand man, and you know Crims is good for the big rounds or for the big stages, the important matches, the clutches.
Crims actually, just really quick, let me what I noticed about Crims is like he's throwing so many good support flashes for them also. Like he's
Sure,
in the
right?
back just chucking flashes. Dude, he had 7 flash assists I think in one half that I was watching at Kato. Like it's like he's doing his job. I'll just say that.
He's doing his job.
Yeah.
But you know who's not? It's Fasher, dude. You go back to 2022, Fasher's like near 1.2 rating across the year, right? Like high teens. Super impactful, very consistent. Somebody who kind of like took Fnatic to that next level. So far this year, after just a play-in at Katowice, just the play-in and the Kato event itself, he's got a 0.83.
Yeah.
He's nowhere to be found. And towards the tail end of 22, you go back to like the SBU finals that Fnatic were able to win. Also wasn't a part of that winning formula. So I think if you look back in the last 3 to 6 months, like there is a significant downwards trend on Fasher. If this is the event that he kind of comes, you know, brings it together, then maybe, yeah, they keep everybody else kind of at bay, whoever's nipping at their heels. In this case, I think Eternal Fire. But if he's absent again, bro, that door is open. Like you said, Xantares is incredible, as always. You know he's going to get a 1.2 by the end of this group, no matter what.
Yeah.
You just know that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And then this whole, you know, Emor, Calyx, sometimes Xfloud increase is promising. But that to me is number 4, yeah. So we agree.
Okay.
So far, so good. No fights.
Right. And then I don't even have to bring up the rest of this group actually. It's IHC. Like we'll see if they can strike lightning again, you know, if they can capture that magic. EG, I'm actually not. There's just been enough talk about this team. I don't want to talk about I'm not going to talk about them. Yeah, just like listen to literally any other podcast ever, or like anything, or read Twitter.
Scroll your Twitter.
Yeah,
tweet about it yourself. You'll get free interactions.
Yeah,
but if there's one more individual that we didn't even touch on that I just want, and I'm not saying for the team, I don't think any achievement will really be had here, but just because I want to see more of, it's Insani of MIBR.
Yep.
Just want to see more of this guy. Katowice, his first LAN, looks super impressive. Shit upon Greyhound, despite that not being the biggest test. But that was a map where he showed just like he was on a whole other planet, man. And I've never seen a debut performance and then multiple people within the space just being like, yeah, Furia and Sani. Yeah, right there.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's
like,
true.
How did that become a conversation topic so quickly?
Yeah. That was actually a little bit odd. Also, I'm pretty sure, actually in the closed qualifier for the RMR, I don't think he totally popped
It was a bit
off.
of a drop off, dude. Yeah, when I cast them versus Complexity, I was like, is he going to take over? But he didn't, so it was a little more muted. Back to reality.
Yeah, so that's a little bit, we'll see. Pro League's going to be a great test for him.
We'll see.
Let's move on to the next group. Which group do you have as the second hardest?
So the second hardest in this case, I think, I'm going to say Group D.
Okay.
Just in terms of like deciding how it's going to go down. I don't even know if it's going to be the best.
Yeah.
It's weird because in my mind I want to. So obviously, if we're saying Group D is the third most difficult to predict, then it'd be the second most predict. Wait,
it's going to be like the second hardest to predict.
Yeah.
Second hardest to predict.
Yeah, I think the overall gameplay in Group B, it's like it's a more muddied, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's what makes it more difficult to predict. I think this one still has some clear tier to it.
Yeah.
Although we'll have to bring back up, I think, CCT in some regard. But I look at this, dude. I think massive open door for Liquid and for Navi, and that to me clear 1-2. I mean, opening game versus Rare Atom. This is a Rooster situation for FaZe where Liquid just get a layup, and then they have to play the winner of ENTS versus ATK.
Yeah,
I think with the uncertainties of ENTS even before the Valda departure, Liquid have that game every day. They've warmed up. If we were coming right off of Blast groups, I'd have more question marks, but we saw them in Kato. Hard to doubt. And Navi, exact same instance. I'm quite curious with fours at the moment. I put a bit of stock in them at CCT, was disappointed, but maybe, I think the Spirit Navi game in the upper semifinals on the other side is like a question mark. But again, dude, Spirit disappointed me. The fact that they went to Malta and just they didn't look unstoppable. They didn't look like major playoffs team. I think we've had this conversation in Cato. Again, you are the unluckiest analyst in the world. Patsy will be the best entry fragger in the world, perhaps, and then all of a sudden Spirit just kind of seemingly claps in events that they generally kind of do well at. So I don't know. Do you agree that Group D is kind of up next, or?
No, I would have had B. But let's just talk about D. I would have taken it in a different order than you, but I think that we can still break this one down, and I have reasons that I could also, in some ways, agree with what you're saying, because I feel like this one's pretty clearly tiered. But that's why I think it's kind of hard to read like who's gonna win it, because I think it could be Navi, it could be Liquid, but they're clearly the two best teams. So in terms of reading that part, it's relatively easy. Like I think like you said, I mean the routes that both of them are gonna take should be pretty straightforward. Like I think that Liquid and Navi just straight up send it to the upper bracket final. They qualify. I don't know who's gonna win that. I think Liquid should, actually. I honestly think Liquid should win that, which seems a little bit crazy to say, but that's just my, like, they've beaten Navi now a couple times recently. They beat them at, where'd they beat them? They beat them at the Rio Major in a BO1. They beat them in, like, the World Finals, I think, was it? Or it was the World or Fall Finals. It was one of the two that they beat them at. And either way, I think that this...
I was at both, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I should bail you out here, but that's so 22. That's so 22.
Yeah, right. It's a minute ago. But I also think that when you kind of keep going down, this gets really, really hard for me to read. Like, I'm really... Right. I think that Astralis, Spirit, and Ents should have been fighting for this. It should now just be Spirit and Astralis fighting for the third spot for me. But like... And I would have just given this to Spirit if I didn't watch Cato. If I didn't watch CCT, I would have said Spirit for sure. But now, I actually think Astralis had time to practice with Cato, not playing that, and with not playing CCT. And I think that if there's any team that probably could have used this much practice, it was probably a team like Astralis. And I think Spirit you're kind of like you're on two sides of the coin here for Spirit and Astralis. You have, and two different narratives you could latch onto for why they could succeed. Spirit has a lot of officials practice lately, but Astralis have a lot of time to actually get in the lab, say, what are we doing badly? Let's fix that stuff. And actually, the thing is with Astralis is that their initial showing at the Blast groups was a little bit better than I thought it was going to be. Like they qualified for Washington, and that was not something that coming into that I would have like, if I pegged teams to do it, Astralis was not on that list, and so they overperformed based off of expectation, and then they probably even just got better and built off of the mistakes that they made. But it's just been so long now since they didn't play Cato and CCT, since they've actually played a real official. So yeah, I just have or at least on LAN, that is, because I think they played some online. They played the close qualifier or whatever, I think. But I'm not. Yeah. So
they got through relatively cleanly as well, Astralis.
If you had to pick one though, who would you pick, Astralis or Spirit?
It's a tough one. Again, I mean...
And how about this? Not even just to win that BO3, but to be the third place team in this group.
I think it's a risk, dude, but I think I would go with Astralis, actually. I think I'll lean into it. I like the mechanical and individual levels that we saw out of Buzz. I think that there was just, the one criticism I still had for Astralis, having watched Blast, and then again, we ran out of game tape, because no Cato. Man, these guys are just throwing Buzz to the wolves. Yeah. Like, a lot of the time, it's kind of just like, all right, the four main players are gonna do X, and then Buzz, you go try this. Like, I saw Blame F send Buzz into apartments on A-Site Inferno from balcony without even flashing him in. Like, Blame's like, no, these are my nades, man. Like, you go check that out. And that to me is, I'm like, if I don't see Buzz integrated as like what feels like even just a fucking equal, then I think there could be some problems for him and for Astralis. But Device looked unquestionable. Yeah. Blame F is always up there. Definitely doing economic damage at the worst case. And I think when Astralis play online, you always get less out of Zipix and Glaive than you do on LAN.
That's fair. And it's true.
Yep. So I think Spirit have a higher ceiling. I really truly believe that. But I think there's something weird going on with them. And I think that, having been such heavy favorites in Malta and then delivering so little, I'm retracting my support temporarily, just out of spite, and just because it's like, tighten up, man. Like that was such an easy event for them to go and win, and especially as like the invitees to that, you're gonna walk around and try to be like this back-to-back major playoff team. You want to get more reps in, you want to get more officials because you're not a Blast partner. You're gonna show up to an event like CCT and then you're gonna drop the ball. Well then, I think that really did backfire. And I think that as we sit here and talk about Eternal Fire's ability to run with momentum from that, I'm gonna heavily weight Spirit's shortcomings last week, and I'm gonna say Astralis come through.
Okay.
And then lose to Navi.
Yeah. They're gonna lose in that semis, yeah. And then, but I think they're gonna make the run to qualify in the 3rd spot out of that group. Actually, also, I think that it's just kind of like, if there's just any project I believe in right now to get better, it is Astralis. Just given the pedigree of these players and their they do have championship aspirations. Like, surely, like, you don't put these players together and say like, yeah, just be okay. Like, no, Device is back. Like, this is what everybody's been waiting for, and it's one of the narratives for this whole year that I gravitated towards the most in terms of like, I want to see it deliver, and I also think that it should deliver because Device is already back in form, and the thing is, like, it's kind of like when everybody on FaZe kind of like was like, but then Rops joined and they're like, okay, it's game time. Like, this is what Astralis should be. That's what Astralis should be doing. Okay, let's get to Group B. So you
Group B.
You considered this one like the hardest. Why do you not think that this, or do you don't let me mischaracterize you, but like, did you think that this was harder for Heroic, or did you think this was harder for 2nd place?
Exactly. From 2nd downwards, I think Heroic, they got this. Clear, concise, straight to the finals. They're going to top this one. Very confident in that, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, we're talking about a tournament winning team, or at least they want to be, and they're very close on multiple occasions. So to me, it's Heroic straight through. It's everything else that then becomes muddied. I think that, again, we go down to Group D. We're talking Liquid Navi. There's all the other groups have that 1 and 2. And in this case, with Heroic taking the top side of the bracket, I think it mixes up, the whole big complexity in Movistar. Movistar hadn't won 2 matches back to back since, I believe, July of 2022. Up until last week.
What is this stat? That's so crazy to hear that.
Okay?
What the hell? Okay.
It just doesn't happen. They just don't win matches. Ever since the Sun Pius departure, that destroyed them. And they're looking a little better. They're looking a little bit better. So I still think Complexity and Big are better teams, but Movistar Riders stock is on a somewhat increase. Meanwhile, other side of the bracket, bro. Furia. Oof. Rough Cato. I'll chalk it up to start of the year. I still like a lot of those pieces. Quesarado is still a top 10 player in the world. Yuri isn't too far away. Well, maybe not top 10 in the world, but you get what I'm saying. I'm hyping up Quesarado's impact.
He's pretty damn good.
He's pretty damn good.
Yeah.
I believe in the safe op. I'm not a massive art critic. I think some maps I can be a little frustrated with art, but overall, I still think that Furia are something to believe in, and I believe Maus are in that exact same boat. I think the Maus versus Furia upper semifinal of this group is going to be a sick game, and I think it's going to either tell us whether Furia are going to continue this downward spiral that started in Katowice at the hands of IHC, or whether Maus are going to be much like a Spirit, maybe, in a team that made playoffs in Rio, and then we're not going to get much out of them again, right? Is Dexter actually going to put up numbers to a point where they're able to win games as he did in Rio? I think they beat Saw. That should be a test. If that is a test for Maus, then their Katowice woes have continued. And Imperial should be nothing but a speed bump for Furia at best. So to me, I cut out Saw and I cut out Imperial, but then I'm still keeping my eyes on Movi, Big, Complexity, and whoever loses Furia and Maus. That's really going to muddy up what goes down in the lower bracket, and I really don't know what to anticipate because it could be Furia. If Maus take their place, I think it's them at the top, but Big and Complexity are nothing to scoff at. I liked Big right before Searson left, and it's crazy to me that he's gone. again, same story as like Nexa. If you had told me at the start of this year that Searson was going to be out of competitive CS mid-February, I wouldn't have understood why, and I still don't really understand why. So
yeah.
Beyond that, bro, I'm confused with this group.
I think that this one is really tough. It should have been pretty much Heroics to win. It is still Heroics to win, and then Furious to just kind of like come in second in. But with how badly they were at Kato, that's where you have to draw this into question. I personally would probably still put Maus as third, but yeah, there's kind of like they lost to Complexity, and now like basically Complexity's run really makes this so unique. Because they could have made it to the playoffs of Kato, but then they choked a big game, which seems like something it just keeps happening to them. They always do that. But actually, they seem to be pretty much group stage warriors now. Like they're becoming that team that's like maybe they can get pretty close or at least take down, like when the pressure's not that high and it's just in a studio, it seems like Complexity is actually okay, but as soon as there's something on the line, then it's like, oh god, like now Complexity is going to fall apart.
We know it's coming.
Yeah, so that's kind of almost in a way, until Complexity show me that they can consistently get over their demons, I would probably have them on the outside looking in of my top 4 in this group. Heroic being my number 1. I do think Fury is going to bounce back. I think it's almost, at this point, actually, to me, it's almost kind of a Cloud9 situation where, as opposed to Axile Shiro, you kind of have Keserato Yuri, and the player quality there is just so high that, and actually, the system does help Yuri and Keserato to some extent, even though I think people will, rightly so, criticize art style. I think that it actually is good enough to beat a lot of opponents. It's really until you start facing off against like the Navis and G2s that like you're really going to run into a brick wall with that kind of style. But I think that actually for most people in this space, I think it actually works just fine. And I think it should be good enough to beat Maus too. And yeah, I mean, to comment on Big briefly, I actually think that they definitely lost a step by losing Searson. But I think that this hype guy has a lot of potential. I noticed when I was watching him already, he's very mobile as an opper, and that's something that like I feel like it's so much harder to teach a really passive opper to do more than to tell a guy that does too much is do a little less. Just stay posted for 10 more seconds, than you normally would. Like, so I actually, for that reason, and I think Hype's mechanics are okay. He's not as good as Searson mechanically, but he just creates his own opportunities so frequently that I actually am kind of liking it. So for me, this would be Heroic, Fury, and Maus, then Big for this group. But I think that's it. Right. Let's
No.
What?
Hold on.
Oh, what?
I want to get, you just ranked your 4. I'm going to take a different road, and I want it to be known before it happens.
Sure.
Heroic 1, Maus 2. I think Furious struggles will continue a little longer, and I think Maus are going to come in clean. So I'm saying Heroic 1, Maus 2, because they have that other side of the bracket. Then we go down into the bottom end, Furia Complexity. I put Cole through. I think that like you're saying, group stage warriors, and I think Grim is just on another level at the moment. I kind of, been trying to press this whole like Grim is better than Elige story, which up until the Katowice playoffs, when Elige decided to just go above and beyond, I think that was looking likely. And I think that, Grim is still trying to just catch up to him. Yeah. And I think that Grim is enough to win games on his own at times, at least enough to win halves. And I think we've seen like, an uptick in Halzer's consistency, which needs to be there because it's not coming in from Floppy and Fang regularly enough. Grim needs a number 2 to be above the rest of the pack, right? And you put those Grim here, those other 3, and then JT just doing what he does. Halzer has to get out of that pack. He can't be inconsistent any longer. And I think that we're going to see him do exactly that. You put him on a LAN, you put him versus this group. I think a new Big, Halzer's op dominance over top of Big for that reason. Halzer's op dominance over Furia because safe is okay, but not, a thoroughbred. I think that's what makes the difference here, and that's why Cole get through.
Cool. Okay. I like that we differ at the end there. That's
now you can move along.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you for ushering me to the next topic here, which is about you.
Oh, hey.
Hey, let's talk about you as a broadcast talent, as someone with aspirations in life, because I think everybody at this point knows you for the fact that you're an exceptional play-by-play. A lot of people have you as their favorite right now, but you're definitely. It's safe to say you're in the upper echelon. That's like there's no doubt about that whatsoever. You're in that top tier right now, and
We made it.
that's something that I know came from you working very hard, and I know that you
Yep.
really care about your craft. I know that you put a lot of effort into making sure that if you did something wrong, you think about what went wrong. You cognize it. You like consider what you can do in the future so that you do it better, and that you give the viewer a better experience the next time. And so, first of all, I'm just praising you. First of all, this is just literally me saying you're doing great. But I want to know from your side, like, is first of all, I guess let's start with just like what it takes to be more autodidactic, because this is a role where like there's no one holding our hands saying
Yep.
this is how you get better every day. Like there's no rubric, there's no
Yeah,
teacher,
no.
so you have to do
No.
it. So what's kind of like, you don't have to give all your trade secrets, but like what's something about your process that brought you to this point that you're at?
Yeah. Okay, man. First of all, thank you. I do think that like I've hit this point in my life where I do have to kind of take a step back and recognize like, yeah, we're at the top, man. I think a lot of it is based on just getting opportunities maybe before we deserve them. I always have to give credit to Blast in that regard. Obviously, they have given us the biggest platform that we get still. And a lot of the times that I'm going to talk about just me as a caster, I might interchange with the word we, because I think that a lot of the improvements that you hear in myself and also the product that I bring out with Launders is because of the two of us having conversations. So right away, dude, I think casting chemistry is a massive thing. It's so highly underrated. I think if you look at my duo with Launders, and if you look at Harry and Hugo, we are the most regular, long-standing commentary partners in the space at the moment. We've been casting longer than Sponge and Machine have, but I think Sponge and Machine came in better. You know, like we grew together over like 5 years now, both of these duos, and so I think that that is such a great piece of. And obviously, Anders and Moses have a lot of experience in the past, but those are duos that are more interchangeable with other people. So you can't say every time you hear them, it's together. But every time you hear us, that's just us collecting data and working off of it and improving. So one of the things is just time, right? It took a long time to get here, and most importantly, dude, it's like how you use that time. And I think you just kind of brought it up a little bit where it's like I'm very self-critical, because of the fact that I believe the viewer deserves the best experience that is possible to them. Everybody remembers, myself included, because I was a viewer then, the glory days that were Sadikis and Henry G, Bardolph and DDK, Anders and Semler. Like that is such a golden trio moment in history of CSGO commentary. And that is a moment in history that is over. We're years beyond it. I now occupy the space that they had. And I think that I owe it to them, and I owe it to the Counter-Strike community, and I owe it to myself that if I'm going to occupy that space, I need to be as good. Like there's 100 other people who could be in my place, and some of them deserve the opportunities that I'm taking at the moment. But right now it's me who gets them, and it's me who's here. And so I'm going to make sure that you get the best version of myself and my casting, because I mean, it's what I live for. It's what I love, and it's what I think I'm good at. But you have to be self-critical, because like you said, in this space, dude, nobody is pushing us forward. I think that there's this misconception that we even really get feedback. A lot of the time the feedback I get is just from people that I share this space with. A lot of the time it's conversation with Launders. Most of the time it's conversations with myself. And so if you're not the type of person to just kind of try and stay on top of yourself, if even when somebody says, wow, that was good, you can't pick out something you could have done better, I think that's problematic, right?
Yeah.
I have a prime example already this year, and I'll bring it up for that reason. There's this Cadian 1 versus 5 that goes down at the Blast group stage versus Vitality. And man, when that happened, that was, I always say how like we cast big matches, but we've never really cast big moments. And in 22, I think that was really true. The biggest moment I could think of was like Brokey's Tech 9 clip, PGL Antwerp,
Yeah.
bottom of Inferno. And that was a great one. I can point at that and be like, damn, we sounded good. And I remember the sound clip because of Launders. Brokey! 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 Like, that's the sound clip, and Mohan brought that to the table for that one. This Cadian one was a sick moment that started at the start of the year, comes out of nowhere. I can say, holy shit, I already cast a 1v5 this year. And it was epic. It was really a really sick play. But when I look back at the cast, even though I think I did it justice, I didn't fumble my words, it doesn't sound bad. I instantly noticed like the repetition of me saying, oh my God, multiple times within that. I think you can remember his play, but you can't remember the cast. And it's not about me, but I owe it to Cadian to elevate that to the next level. If I go back to Blastfall Finals and I'm talking about his trophy lift, I'm kind of, casting him as the jester in the royal arena with the royal court. And I think that's, you hear my grandeur moment. My moments of grandeur are really in my trophy lifts right now, but I'm not as good at getting them into the casts. And that's something that play specifically reminds me of that. But it happened at the start of the year. I'm not going to let it happen twice this year because, again, you have to have this mentality when you're a caster.
Yeah, I think that's really all very well put, and also I think just shows just how much you care about it and how much you're thinking about these moments, because the whole idea about like, people will say to us, that was really good, you nailed it or whatever. That like for me more so it's like, oh, that death segment was funny, or like you nailed this part, but it's like, I know I could have like delivered this thing better. I could have like used this idea I had later. It's like, oh, this word would have been better to use, or like, oh, this metaphor that I had in my mind, or like, always something that could have been better. It's almost never that you finish. At least for me, like I never finish a segment and I'm like, that was, oh God, that was a perfect segment. I nailed every part of that.
Sure.
Like oh, I could have done. There's always one more thing that could have been better, and I think that. You and myself both just are constantly trying to make sure that we're giving the audience also like what they deserve in terms of like these moments that they're gonna think about for the next 5 years, 10 years. It'd be nice to be considered in that pantheon for them of people that they respect, like those that three that you said before. And for me, it's some of like the analysts of the past, or even when I am casting too, like trying to just give it as much as I can in that regard too, like whatever role I'm in, just like making sure that people just remember these moments fondly, as opposed to like if they can see fault in what I'm doing, then it's a failure. Then there's truly a failure, because like the only people that should be able to spot these like actual nuance faults are probably like the most trained eyes. I would hope. Even if people hate my opinions, that's not what I'm talking about.
Right.
I'm okay with that. Yeah.
No, but I think even if people disagree with your opinions, people have to agree you present them well. I think, and especially as you as an analyst, bro, it's far harder for you to have those moments because gameplay doesn't provide them. So I think that I have respect for you and for analysts in that regard, where it's like, man, if you're giving a viewer a memorable moment from an analyst desk, like I'm working over plays. Like I get the gameplay, dude. It's so much easier in that regard. So yeah, it should be, it should be memorable. I think that's the big take, man. I really just want to, and if we're just talking about my aspirations in that regard, like it's like, yeah, I want to be remembered as one of the best that's ever done it. I know that I won't do this for the rest of my life. I will be doing something else one day. And when I think back to my time as a CSGO caster, I just want to think that, like, with 100% certainty, I gave it everything I had in an attempt to become a legend in this space, right? I'm happy with who I am. I'm happy with where I am, because that's another thing. I think there's this duality, right, where we need to be super self-critical, but we also need confidence to pull this off. When you shout to a crowd of 15,000 people, "Let me hear you roar," like, you got to believe that you're going to get an answer, because if you even crack a little in those moments, man, those fall so flat. And then, if like, I've had a couple moments in crowd hypes. I did one in Lisbon where like it came a little short. Like either Like they just weren't, they had just cheered, so they weren't really ready to do it a second time. And bro, for the next 3 rounds of that cast, the Counter Strike was a blur on the screen, man, because you just feel so small. And you got to shake it off. Like that's ultimately it, right? Like you gotta understand you're doing your best. Be kind to yourself when you're reflecting on your work, and I think that goes beyond commentary as well. Just be kind to yourself, but hold yourself accountable. Get better. Yeah. Whatever the hell you're doing, man, just get better.
Let's talk about now to finish off this show, or at least your part of it. Something that I know you've also taken a lot of effort to get pretty darn good at.
Too much.
Which is HLTV Fantasy. HLTV Fantasy. Yeah. Let's round the show out with that. I think last season you were second place on the celebrity leaderboard. You came up just short to Flom, who predicted basically
throw of the century.
Which he predicted James to do well in the playoffs of the major, which is like to him and Fury to do well, which is like credit to him for making a huge gutsy play, which seems like something you have to do if you want to come in first place in fantasy. But you there's a lot of ways we could go, a lot of directions we could go with this discussion about fantasy, but I kind of want to actually, because by the time this releases, no one can steal your draft for the first week of Pro League. I want you to talk about your draft and how you came to those conclusions, because I know you're very meticulous and methodical with how you put it together. So do you mind enlightening the audience with what it takes to put together a good draft? Like you are one of the more respected people in the celebrity league at the very least.
It's a tough season at the moment. All right, we've had some slip-ups so far, but I think that specifically for Pro League, I mean, we're going into an entire season of Pro League where HLTV will do a fantasy event per group plus finals. So five attempts at fantasy here, 25 points max each time, 125 points up for grabs, bro. And I think that with this one, we have to remember the padding, right? Like, so sometimes people underplay the format of the event. Sometimes people don't look at which teams are playing versus one another. And I think it's pretty simple or just like relatively easy to at least assess that. Try to predict outcomes of games before you get hung up on certain individual players. And in this case, right, both teams who make it to the upper final get multiple rounds of padding. If you can predict the team that gets there from each side of the bracket and select a player from that team, you're going to be just racking in points regardless, right? This is why Launders ended up finishing like top 2% at Blast Groups, because he had Zywoo from Vitality. So if you have the hard carry from a certain team and then all these padding points are taken into consideration, it pales in comparison, picking good players from other teams that aren't going to win pales in comparison to just getting the right players from the right teams. So I think that's one big one. Another tip is just try to avoid the duds. And maybe I should have heard this tip myself, because at CCT, for some reason, I picked Barry. I don't know, man. And that's, what? Here, I'm gonna side rant before I tell you the group, bro. Here's the thing with fantasy, and if you're listening, Prof, this one's for you, bro. I hate the fact that a major playoffs event is weighted as heavily as CCT Malta, where the PCs crash, it's 14-hour days, the grand finalists have to play 2 best-of-3s in a day, and there's no separation between group stage and playoffs. Why is that going to get me the same amount of points as an IEM Katowice, as an IEM Cologne, as a major in either regard, as any of the Blast events? So I do hate this about fantasy in that regard, or at least about the Celebrity League. Like, I like playing multiple events. I think everything ESL and everything Blast should be included. And I like some pop-ups, but I think because I enjoy playing the pop-ups, it's fun that anybody who picked Movistar actually did well last week. That's cool. Like you had an inclination to go for a risk.
Last season we didn't even play the events like this. We actually literally didn't. We excluded them from the celebrity leaderboard because people just saying not all of us are following those, even though we follow the big events so closely. Like, it is literally our lives. We're not following CCT as closely, and we're not trying to like the reads. I think that there should be waiting. I think that there should be waiting too. I think that basically majors should be like a 1.2x or something, 1.5x or something like that. And especially the playoffs of a major should be weighed the most. But I think 100%. Like CCT weighing the same as a major playoffs is just like, are you like what? Like no one's even like, I know not everyone's even watching this. Like let's just be honest. Let's all be
And at the end of the season last year, it came down to 2 points the difference between me and Flom. You know, I remember the event specifically that I should have picked Kiggert instead of Crimbo. And I had it drafted because you know me, bro. I'm going to draft 4 different teams. I'm going to calculate and utilize every single dollar that I can in the $1 million budget. I spend way too much time drafting a bunch of different teams. And you can see that process, okay? Because as of today and moving forward through Pro League, I'm going to start releasing videos on my YouTube. It's called HLTV Fantasy Land. It's a CSGO fantasy show where I go through my draft and kind of just, I want to document the process, right? Because I think that the first season of the Celebrity League for HLTV was the most successful HLTV marketing scheme in history for the website. They went from something like 12 players, 8 of which were probably active, to now having like 26 people on that list. I'm hanging out at IEM Katowice. Jimmy from Razors bringing up fantasy to me. Individuals all over the place are getting into it. Yeah, people are talking about it. The fact that you can go through Sponge's Twitter, Launder's Twitter, my Twitter, you're gonna see people posting when they are in the 1%. Maniac, Bullet. It's like they're getting so much more eyes on fantasy.
Traction and buzz,
traction. Which is, and again, like I've said, raise the stakes, give us more money. But actually, you can keep your money. Just give me a better product. Start making CCT events 50% the weight of make the endpoints 0.5. Make your Katowices, your Colognes, your big finals, your big lands, your majors, make that 1.5, make that 2. Do something. But I mean, if I'm gonna dedicate season after season all this attention to HLTV Fantasy, I want to see that the product's getting better, because I don't want it to get stale. Because once it gets stale, it's not going to be as fun.
Because do we really need this knife booster? Do we really need this?
Get the knife booster out, bro.
Get the knife booster out. It's worthless.
Get the knife booster out.
Change the nade one also, and make the nade one not about 2 grenade kills, but getting like 150 nade damage. Because then I can actually think about their spots. Like I'll think about their spots. Who's gonna pick Inferno? Who's gonna nade Banana? Like that's what I'm good. I'll start thinking about it more. But as of right now, I'm just using that power viewer, and I'm just like, click which one's the highest. That's.
I realize it's a point and click adventure is what it's kind of come down to. Once you understand boosters and roles, it's just about like using all your boosters and clicking all the but again, the only reason I'm talking this smack is because at its core, it's something that's incredibly fun. And I think this is, I touch on this in Fantasyland, is it's like it's a really good companion to just watching Counter-Strike in general. Obviously for us, like we're on a leaderboard and there's a prize pool, and as talent, we're obviously going to brag about it and kind of like, talk smack to one another based on this, because it's just it's a really easy way to have a one-up over other experts. But I think if you are just, an average Joe at home, here's the pitch. If you watch all these CSGO streams regardless, play fantasy, and I think you'll have a better active listening experience, I think you will be learning more while you're in game, because your eye is just immediately drawn to different elements of certain players. I know that even though this is my job, before I started playing fantasy, I can't say I sat at home and watched an entire season of ESL Pro League, because usually that's my time off. I would keep up to date with scores. I might watch a certain game or two. It'd be on in the TV while I'm in the kitchen or whatever. But last season of Pro League and this season of Pro League as well, I will be actively watching nearly every day with the streams up, seeing which players are hot and cold. And you brought this up at the start, right? You said that I'm a play-by-play who actually has opinions. And I think I had much less opinions before I started playing fantasy, because I was just generally less informed. But if you just play fantasy, which isn't a massive ask, and you don't even have to try to be the very best, just put in, the 20 minutes before an event goes live or whatever not, and keep track of it, you're going to be able to talk about Counter-Strike to a much higher level with whoever you talk about it to. Even if you're not on broadcast, it's still just, if you're going to spend your time, again, be better, right? If you're going to spend your time watching CS, why not know exactly what you're actually watching?
Cool.
Fix that shit.
Okay, let's okay, do you want to give any of your draft?
Oh, right.
Yeah. Let's do.
I'll reveal it.
Yes.
I'll reveal it. Okay, so for Group A, again, I'm going for the heavy padding points, right?
Yep.
I think for that reason, G2 is a surefire pick. You could go for HLTV because he's cheap. I think people will fall into that trap. When you want padding points, you need somebody who's going to end with high points, because padding is based on the player's points at the time of getting to that, that win, average roll activation, and +6 for a win on every round of padding. I believe there's 3 rounds. So I went for Hunter and JKS.
Mm-hmm.
At the moment, Mauisnake is overpriced. He's actually the 4th highest rated player, so only above HLTV in the last month. That could change at a moment's notice. I have no disillusion. I think he could be the MVP of Pro League. I don't know, but 230,000 too much. Nico, same boat.
Yeah.
If you're gonna pick one of those more expensive options, I would say go for Nico over Mauisnake right now. He completely farmed RMR. But I have Hunter and JKS. They're the last 2 affordable pieces for G2 at the moment. JKS is the 2nd highest rated player in G2 over the last month, and he's only like 203, I think. So Hunter and JKS, leader and support role. They're going to win. They're going to clear the group. They're going to get a bunch of padding points. Then I have Jame, because Jame, even when they lose, Jame is ending series and maps positively. I watched Jame lose 16-4 on Vertigo in Kato and still finished that map with a +1.3 rating. It was a 16-4 loss, and he's 1 point. It doesn't make sense, bro. And so considering he will also get padding points, I think, barring a loss to Fnatic, there's Jame. That's my cash cow. Hunter, JKS, and Jame. Then I rounded out with Emor from Eternal Fire. 188,000.
Yeah.
Cheap. At this point, it has to be. You have no other options. The only other choice at that price range was like Techno, who, again, I don't expect IHC to go above and beyond. And even if they do, I don't think it's coming from Techno. They'll be in the lower bracket struggle alongside Eternal Fire, most likely. It's a risky pick because Eternal Fire starts versus G2, so they'll definitely have to run a lower bracket. And my last choice, even though, man, it's sketchy, I've gone for NAFFLY.
Ooh.
$177,000 left.
Yeah.
The only 2 people I'm considering are NAFFLY and Major.
Oh, God. Yeah.
And if I go Major, then I feel like I'm going too all in with Eternal Fire.
Yeah, doubling up on Eternal Fire seems risky.
Little crazy.
Yeah.
But then again, NAFFLY, here's the thing. NAFFLY is the only team that's guaranteed to play against Evil Geniuses. And I think that if NAFFLY plays against EG, he's going to be in the front. He's good for 2 kills every round. He will farm Evil Geniuses. He will lose to G2, and then he will be carried through the end. And as long as he doesn't give me -40 points, I'm getting the cash cow of Hunter, JKS, and James. So if you want to make sure you get top 1%, come watch Fantasyland.
Okay. I'll give mine really quickly just so people can compare it maybe after they watch this. I did fall into the HLTV trap. I went HLTV JKS, but then I got Axile on Cloud9. I got Emor also, and then my last player is Flit. So I have I spent all my money too. I feel pretty good about that. I will say that one thing I've always noticed is that for roll bonuses, like, it's really good to actually get an Opper. So I was really trying to toy with a lineup that had either Nikodas or Jame, but I just couldn't put one. Like, Nikodas gave me some flexibility, but then I had Nikodas, and sometimes he's actually just not that good. So
sure.
So that was kind of what turned me off from that, and I like this one more because I think like Emor is the steal of this right now, just based off of what we saw at CCT, and but yeah, that's gonna do it for us. I think that this was really cool. I think that you shared a lot of insight, a lot of your mentality. Also got some more of your opinions, which we never can have too many of. Always love it, but not on the casts. Biased caster. But thanks so much, Scrawny, for coming on. Actually,
no, pleasure.
You should plug your podcast. You should plug that too.
Oh, Scrawndoggen. Yeah. It's Scrawndoggen is the collection of thoughts that I have post CSGO events and pre CSGO events as the year goes on. We're about 4 episodes deep, and I say we, it's just me. It's a solo podcast for the time being. I do plan on having guests throughout the year as this moves forward. I got myself a traveling microphone setup, so now when I go to CSGO events, I'm going to do them there. There was a big lapse in time at the start of the year with groups in Cato where I didn't have a setup, but I definitely want that changed because it's just a really good way for me to continue to put my thoughts out there. I talk about casting, I talk about the people I hang out with, including this snake, and yeah, it's just a really good outlet for me. I missed it a lot during Cato because, you know, every once in a while there'll be a certain game I cast, or there'll be a certain situation at an event that I would really just like to kind of share perspective about or just reflect on out loud. And so that's really been my way to do that. So definitely you can catch it on Spotify, Scrawny on Spotify. It's linked in my Twitter at all times, pinned. And check out my new content as well on YouTube, because that's something that is very new to me. Not my wheelhouse whatsoever, but I have, I've approached 2023 with the mantra of just be better. So that's what's coming up next.
Sweet. Okay. Well, thanks so much for coming on again. Peace, man.
Cheers, bro. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in already for Scrawny. Next up, we've got NAF, and he's going to talk about the origin story with his name, why it's NAF, what NAFFLY is, some of his history with some of his other lineups going way back, even a little bit before OpTic. And you're going to hear about why that team was so good, the difference between daps as an IGL, stanislaw as an IGL. You're going to hear about what his tenure has been like on Liquid and how he almost even joined Evil Geniuses. And you're also going to hear about what NAF thinks about being called the Sloth. So I'm here with NAF. This is obviously amazing because NAF's recording this from the West Coast. It is noon there at present. It is 8 p.m. for me in London. And NAF, actually, I tried looking really quickly. Have you done a podcast before?
Nah, I usually usually stuck away from doing podcasts and all that. And anytime anybody ever asks me to do a podcast, I'll just be like, talk to me when I retire. I'll say everything.
Okay, all right. Actually, that's pretty okay. So I got you for your first. So that's okay,
Yeah,
cool.
pretty much.
So
Yeah.
all right. So we'll see. I'm pretty sure it's nothing to be worried about. Obviously, you're a chill dude, and obviously, I think we have some pretty decent rapport. We've hung out at events a little bit here and there, so I'm not trying to scare you. I'm not trying to put you off podcast forever right now. So,
Yeah.
all right, let's open this up with just kind of a general question that kind of surprised me, because obviously I asked you to do a podcast maybe like a month ago, maybe even 2 months ago, I think, and we could never really line up our schedules. But what I noticed is that after we actually after I asked you that, it felt like you were kind of hounding me to do it. Like, so even though you haven't done it before, what made you want to do it so badly?
I mean, I think I've gotten deep into my career enough to the point maybe I should kind of, try to be on these things, podcasts. I'm sure people want to hear me talk about some things, but yeah, no, I mean, I agreed to doing a podcast, so I'm gonna hold up to my word. I don't want you to feel like I'm trying to like flake out or something like that. So I was like, yeah, let's try to get it done now. All right, oh wait, gotta like practice. Oh, I got this thing coming up. I want to do this. So, but yeah, it's like you asked me if I want to do a podcast. I agreed, so I'm gonna keep to my word and make sure that I get it done.
All right, awesome. Okay, yeah. I mean, you seem like the kind of guy that's just, if you set your mind to it, you're gonna get it done. I wanted to bring up one thing really quick about your username, because I know that you usually go by NAF, but then obviously you have sometimes NAFFLY, and that fly suffix, I've gathered from different areas, like it was kind of in remembrance of someone that you used to play with. But do you mind telling the whole story?
Yeah, I don't know. I made up my alias when I was about I don't know, I think like 11 or 12 years old. It just stands for like nutty as fuck. That's what I called. I don't know. It's silly. Obviously, I made it when I was young. So don't hold it against me. So yeah, my original alias is just NAF, but the fly part is it's a remembrance memorial thing that we put on the end of our names. It was I was playing back in Counter-Strike Source. I was playing the ESEA main division. I don't even know. I think it was season 11. I think back then, and I was playing on this team called Mild, and yeah, I was playing on this team for a while, and then one of my teammates, unfortunately, I think walking to a friend's house, he was killed in a hit and run, and his alias was Brundlefly. So so after all that happened and all that, the rest of my team, we all put just like the dash fly like on the end of our names as just like a remembrance memorial thing for them. And yeah, I mean, I think I've had it for so long, it's like grown to be a part of my alias. And I think when it came to the time, I think when I was younger, I think before when I made like my first major, I think in like 2016, obviously they ask you, it's like you need to submit your alias and like what it's gonna be. And obviously I've just put NAF because NAF is just my alias. But I think it's growing so much to be to the point where it's like pretty much my alias is like as well, with the fly on the end. So I do regret not throwing that on for like the major and making it like my official alias. But at the end of the day, like I think I'm more stuck on or more keen on NAFFLY than just NAF.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I think the thing is that people know you for it regardless of what the official submission was or anything. So it's
Yeah.
I think I mean, you're still doing him justice, and that's a pretty heartwarming story about you guys all adding that. So thanks for sharing that. I really appreciate that. I wanted to know about when, like, the kind of mystique you've gathered with fans where they've sort of characterized you as the sloth, like basically, naffers rise up is usually with the OS sloth emote in Twitch chat all the time. I wanted to know what your opinion of that is, because I think people could have different takes on what the sloth means.
Yeah, I mean, of course. I mean, when you first think about it, sloth, I guess. I don't know. It's just, I can understand maybe some people might use it as like a hurtful term or something like that. Like, oh, dude, you're like a sloth. You're so slow, or fucking sloths are ugly, or some shit. One of those. But I don't know. There's also other people that find it like cute and stuff. Like, oh, sloth. And yeah, Nap is chill. He is slow. He doesn't talk too much. He seems like just such a chill guy. And for me, yeah, no, I mean, I can understand people taking it as like a negative or a positive. In my opinion, I take it as a positive. I think people use it all in good fun, and I think it's a good thing to take and kind of run with it. It's like if the community and the fans are kind of running with this thing, you should maybe try to run and be on top of it and make something out of it. So in the future, you never know, like if I stream or something, or like if I'm making like apparel or doing something, it's like I can make something out of it, and I can, you know, just bounce off of it, and do something with it. So I appreciate it. I think it's nice. I think it's really funny when people say things. I remember I'd just be watching games, being in Twitch chat too. I won't even be playing the game, and like I'll see it like appear like any nappers in the chat and all that. So yeah, no, when I see it, I think it's funny. I appreciate everybody that does it, and yeah, shout out to them.
Yeah, actually, it is basically any game. It doesn't even have to be with North American teams at this point. There is a 1 in 5 chance someone will just type any naffers in the chat. Like,
yeah, just randomly.
Yeah. So it does just pop up like that. So okay, so you don't take it like do you think it represents your play style at all? Because you kind of are one of the, like, you're not too slow like a sloth obviously, but you definitely have a more calculated approach.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm like pretty slow, like I guess in terms of my play style in game, where I play more passive, and obviously I'm a lurker on T side, so I play a lot more by myself, and I'm a lot more chilled, waiting for my teammates to make plays. I think it also is obviously a little bit more like on appearance and stuff like that. Like I am just like no emotion, just chilling, not moving. I fist bump my teammates, just fist bumping slowly. It's just like, yeah, I don't know. But yeah, with everything, I mean, I love it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah. Also, it's never really. I think a lot of people have learned the hard way. It's never good to just fight those type of things. Like if the community is giving you something like that, just run with it and just embrace it, because they probably like it when you do.
I mean, yeah, I think like if you run with it and make something of it, like you can actually make something with it, and it could be like a huge positive. Whereas like before you thought of it as like a negative or something for whatever reason, depending on like what you are, like in the scene, like
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Okay. I wanted to know also about the some of the kind of narrative surrounding you is about your individual practice or your ability, and I think right now, like, kind of, it's not like this has been confirmed anywhere that I am aware of, but people kind of say like, oh, NAF, he'll just show up and he's always going to be good. And I think that's generally speaking the case in terms of your consistency. But I want to know how much work goes into that, because are you actually not deathmatching? Are you doing anything? Like, are you watching demos, or are you literally just showing up to practice and matches every day and just saying, you know what, I'm going to kill people?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, I never really played individually too much. Like I wouldn't play deathmatch or watch too many demos. Yeah, no, I mean, at least especially back then, like during like when I was playing really well and like when Liquid was really successful, I think during like 2018, 2019, all that. Like back then, like I was playing on like really low sensitivity. I was playing on like 0.6, like 800 DPI or something like that. It's like really,
Yeah,
it's really
that's-
slow.
that's
Like
super
1.2,
slow.
I guess 400. So it's super slow. So it's like if I'm playing deathmatching, if I'm deathmatching, it's just like, dude, like I'm getting shot in the back like 9,000 times. It's like I can't even turn to kill people really to play deathmatch. So in my opinion, deathmatching for me was pretty much like a waste of time. For the most part, like I'd play like just like aim bots, just to warm up a little bit, and then like I'd play just practice because like without practice, like on Liquids, like it's just like any other teams. I assume it's like we like at least like for now, I know with our current schedule, we've been like when we'd be boot camping and playing in Europe, like we'd play from like 11, and then we'd have a 1 hour break at 1, and then we'd play, and then we'd keep playing, and then we have another break at 6 for an hour, and then we'd finish at 9.
Mm.
That's just like just team and like stuff. So from 11 to 9, 2 1 hour breaks in between. That's like a lot of hours, and for me personally, I don't really feel like I need to play or do much more. Obviously I'm more of like a side player, I guess, like on the team, whereas like I have like a Kindar, I have like a Liege, I have Nitros, also IGL, I have daps who all love to like want to make sure they're there to create the game plan and see how the game is played. So for me, I don't feel like I need to do too much. It's kind of like, what's that saying? It's like there's already too many chefs like in the kitchen, It's like I'm just gonna chill. Like, I don't really need to do the extra time because everybody else already wants to do it. But of course, individually, like before like I go into a game or something, like I'll just pull up the VOD or like the demo of like the team I'm playing against, and I'll mainly just focus like on who I'm playing against. So it's like obviously I'm gonna see everything that's going on, but I'm just gonna pay attention and look, like, say for example, if I'm playing T-side Mirage on A, like I'm just gonna check out how the A player and the con players play together, like, and if the opper comes to play at all. And yeah, it's like mainly just the things I'll focus on, and then yeah, I'll just focus on that and maybe play some boss before a game, like a match. Just warm up, make sure I'm warm, and yeah. But I mean, even though I'm like rambling a little bit, but just to go back on like the point where like back in the day where like I played on such slow sensitivity, like I wasn't like that crazy player running around, turning around, like getting 180 like headshots and all that, doing any crazy plays. I just felt like back in the day, obviously I still believe it is now, but as long as you're like smart enough and you position yourself well, like you're gonna get the kills. It's all about, for me, the game is more mental. Like the biggest thing in this game for me is just confidence. And I feel like when it comes to mentality and my mental and like how everything is, like I don't get too flustered easily, like I'm pretty solid mentally. If things go wrong, it's just like whatever, things go wrong, it's Counter-Strike. It's a round by round game. So for the most part, it's like I'm pretty I just believe a lot of it is just in confidence, just preparation and just like positioning in the game and just like in listening to info and just knowing where you should be and what you should do. It's mainly a lot on that. I feel like it's more about in the mind and in the head than it is to be like constantly preparing or fucking death matching or constantly aimbotting or doing whatever you have to do. Play 1,000 pugs a day. I feel like that just does nothing for me. For me, it's pointless. So I don't really do those things. And for maybe some other players, it could be a different way. Some players love to play pugs like 10 hours a day or whatever. After they're done practice or whatever. But for me, it's just different.
Yeah, actually, you mentioned that, and for one, I totally agree. I do feel like, other than there is kind of like this upper echelon of people in tier 1 that you can see that their mechanics are on another level. Like they clearly do work on it more than other people, but they probably do in some ways kind of miss something else, because like you can't be good at everything all the time. So it's unless you're basically simple, like it feels like something's got to give somewhere, and even simple probably has his very very micro weaknesses here and there. So would you say, this is kind of more a general question, but like if someone were trying to come up in the space right now, how much, like let's say it's like an ESEA main player or something like that, do you think that this person should probably just be focusing more on like what they're doing wrong or like mechanics or what?
Honestly, like I have no idea. I mean, anytime anybody would ever come up and ask me like, yo Keith, like how do I get better at the game? I'm just like, dude, just play the game. Like,
Okay.
there's nothing like specific to it. Like I
Sure.
don't really know how to answer this question to like
Okay.
to the greatest answer or whatever, but for me it's just like, I don't know. For me, I would just play the game as much as I can, and like I would just, I mean, like I can only speak off of like how I was playing like when I was a kid. Like when I started playing Counter-Strike, I started playing Counter-Strike when I was like 9, 10 years old, and like I was just playing constantly. I'd play playing casual games, and then I'd be playing pugs,
Yeah.
and like I'm playing league matches. Okay, I'm playing league matches, and yeah, I'm just focusing on like what's in front of me. Like I'm not focusing on like, oh, I gotta get to the top and be the best and watch the demos of like the best players and all this and like play like them, because I feel like even if you think like that, a lot of the players in those main or lower divisions, they'll play way different. They'll run and do random
Yeah,
different
true.
things that you wouldn't even expect in pro players' minds at the very top. It's like it just doesn't work like that. Like some players will be doing a lot more random things in those lower divisions. So I think like you just need to focus on your individual and like your skill, stand out from other players. Of course, don't be like a super selfish person and like bring your team down and then try to jump ship and find another team. Like I don't know, I was doing that a lot when I was younger in like 2012, 2013. I was jumping ship a lot. But yeah, I just think like focus on your individual skill, and like once your individual skill is standing out, people will call you out about how well you're playing individually, and then that's when like you'll find your chance maybe to go onto a different team, and other people might notice you and you can be on a better team. And yeah, but for the most part, I guess you just have to focus on yourself and what you're dealing with in person. Just the pugs that you're playing, the matches that you're playing, and yeah, just take it from there and just keep going.
All right, let's fast forward from say 2012-13 NAF development and talk about what I would consider the team that you had the first big international success with, and that's, to me, that's OpTic. I I think that your guys' performances at E-League really caught everybody's attention. The fact that you took down an Astralis that was kind of powering up at that point, I think that they weren't necessarily... I mean, they were pretty damn good at that point. So, I mean, I think that was all incredibly impressive. And I kind of want to know, because obviously this is a while ago and I'm not going to ask you to recall every single detail, but kind of what do you think about the makeup of that team that made it so successful on the international stage?
So yeah, I think coming into like the OpTic lineup, obviously, I think we originally started out as like sponsorless. It was me, I think it was like me, RYX, Rush, Shazam, daps, and Stanislaw. I think that was like the five or whatever it was. I don't even know how many people I just said.
It might have been
Wait, hold on.
six, but
Was that six? Wait, hold on.
wait,
I'm trying to figure out
wait
how
a
it
second.
started
Let
actually.
me see. Let me actually. I'll just look at this really quick.
Maybe you might have to research for me. Wait, it was me, RYX,
Yeah.
Jazz, daps, Rush. Me, RYX.
Well, was Stan
Wait, so
part
was
of
it?
it?
Or maybe Stan wasn't part of it. I think we maybe cut ROX for Stan, maybe?
Well, are you talking
Was that
about Conquest or are you talking about?
just mainly like more about like sponsor lists coming into Conquest?
Oh,
'Cause I think
okay.
I don't remember how it started. I think it started with me, RYX, Rush, Daps, and Shaz, and then I think
Okay, yeah, I found
we
it.
cut RYX for Stanislaw. Am I correct?
Yeah. It was. Well, you say RY. I say Rix, Rush,
Oh yeah, Rush.
Shazam,
Yeah.
Daps, and you. And then I think, yeah, when you guys moved to what is this? Well, I guess this is Conquest. I think that's when you guys switched it up,
Yeah.
and you got, after not too long, you had, I think, Stan. Yeah,
Yeah, I
you
think
did.
so.
You
Okay.
did. Yeah.
Alright,
So
I'll
it was
try to read
Daps,
off
Rush, NAF, Shazam, Stan at one point.
Okay. So yeah, I think starting off with like the lineup we originally, I think we started with sponsorless. It was me, Ronnie, Rush, Shaz, and Daps.
Yeah.
And I remember just during that time, like I think during that time, how that team was like more formed. It was like nobody wanted us from other teams. Like, 'cause I think like originally like I was on Liquid, and then I got cut from Liquid, and then a few months later, uh, Daps got cut from Liquid, and then I think like Shaz was on other teams, and he got benched from those teams, and I think like Rix, like nobody wanted Rix because like he had some stigma about him or something, like how about how he was as a player, so nobody really wanted him, but we saw him as like a super skilled player, so we
Yep.
started out with him. So yeah, we started out with that lineup. I remember, and like, during that time, that was like the very beginning of like the NA teams and NA players kind of coming up, and I think during that time, a lot of us were more immature just about like some things, and especially I know like on that team there was a lot of like immaturity problems, like people not getting along with other people and getting mad at other people, and yeah, and I think at one point we had to replace Rix, I think, and then that's when Stanislaw came in, and then that's like a lineup I think a lot of people are more aware about, is that lineup with Stan, me, Stan, Daps, Rush, and Shazam, and all that.
Yep.
So yeah, on Conquest, I remember like we were just playing. I think for the most part, like everything was going pretty well. Yeah, and then Conquest was fine, and then I think towards the start of 2016, we got picked up by OpTic. That's when OpTic came in. They wanted to pick up a team for Counter Strike, which was awesome at the time. I remember OpTic was a big name back then. I mean, they still are. You
Yeah.
know, especially with them and FaZe and like their all the stuff they have in Call of Duty and all that. So them coming to Counter-Strike was awesome. I think that was like a really dope experience to have. I appreciate Hector and all those people that allowed us to be on OpTic and play for their organization. It was a fun time. But so we started off with OpTic. We're playing on OpTic, and then we're playing on OpTic, and then I think eventually like we're having like some issues, and I can't really remember exactly like what happened.
Well,
I think at one.
You guys like left, or Mixwell came in for Shazam.
Oh yeah.
That
Yes,
was like
okay,
the
now-
first big move there, I think.
Yeah. Okay, now my memory's jogged a little bit.
Yeah.
Until I forgot who replaced Shazam. But it was Mixwell.
Yeah.
But yeah, so later on we started having more issues like with our team, and we just felt like we needed another change, and that's when instead of just picking up and finding another North American player, Damien Daps was scouting and looking at like other talent in Europe, and he came across like Mixwell, and like Mixwell I think like originally was like he was watching him and he was like a super sick rifler and he was really sick at entering. But then when he came to our team, he became like an opper, I guess. Which
Yeah,
was
yeah, he
strange,
was.
I guess from the scouting report, I think initially, I think it was definitely different. But I remember bringing in Mixwell was like a huge pickup for us. I remember like starting to play with him, like we're playing games and like he was super confident, more confident than like any other North American players. Like he had just different reads and understanding, probably just from playing in Europe. Obviously, it's a different game, and back then North America was a lot more behind in terms of understanding what the right meta and playstyle was. So playing with him was like at the start was really nice. I remember him; he had good comms. He's super motivated, and he just taught us like a new way of playing Counter Strike, or at least us seeing and identifying a new way of playing Counter Strike. And he was a good pickup. And yeah, I think we're having like okay results, obviously, and I think things were going decent for us, and then I think it got to a point where
You guys,
we brought in.
you got
then-
tarik for Stan first.
Yeah. Okay. And then and then the next thing
Then
is
you had like a
yeah,
little
so-
switcheroo where it's like then daps for Stan. So
Yeah. So yeah, no, I remember like we were doing okay, but we didn't have like any like crazy results or anything. Not really too much success. And then and then we brought in. Then we saw that like tarik was like available, I guess, during this time, and like we're like, all right, like tarik is a sick player during that time. Like he was definitely like one of the best, like more popular NA players, and we're like, all right, if we want to take our team to the next level, we might have to pick up tarik. And I remember that's like what we did. We ended up picking up tarik for Stanislaw. And so yeah, we had our lineup there with me, Daps, tarik, Mixwell, Rush, and myself. I remember we're playing, and I remember it's so long ago, it doesn't really matter. I feel like too much, but I remember playing, and tarik wasn't like a huge fan of Daps's calling style during that time, and like he wasn't like a huge fan of like how things were going and like how the team ran and like how we played the games and all that. And I remember I think like during that time, obviously like a lot of us were very impressionable by like tarik, like the things he would say, and like he's a new guy, and I think a lot of us believed like he was like one of the better players. So he's like, all right, like honestly, like I don't think this is like the best way of playing Counter Strike the way Daps is calling. And I don't know. I think like during like that time, that's when like we started to have talks again. Like, did we play with Daps, and then like I don't know, the conversation of wanting to play with Stan again. And I think because Stan may have mentioned, I think when we're talking, he said, I want to come back and be a caller for the team. And we saw that as like, all right, I guess it's like an opportunity. Maybe if Daps isn't really working out, we're just gonna bring back Stan and play with Stan. And in the end, that's what happened. Mainly, we just.
How would
was mainly just
How would you characterize the way that Daps called back then? Because it felt like, from what I remember, it was kind of defaulty. It was kind of like trying to read sometimes, but like, well, actually, what is it from your perspective? Because it's been a pretty damn long while since I watched those games.
It's been a while for me too since I played with him calling. But yeah, I mean, he was definitely more like defaulty for sure, and like calling a lot. I think like a lot more like 4-1s and stuff like that at times, and like I don't know. Yes, and like I don't know, but it may have been during that time. Like I don't know. I think Daps is also a little bit more different than Stanislaw in terms of like just like his emotions. I think Stan was more laid back and more calm, and like always had more of a calm setting when talking to people, and like wanting to do things. Don't get me wrong, like Daps was also a very calm person, but I think like when the stress and like the pressure started to come, I just felt like maybe, at least in hindsight now, after everything's done, I think Stanislaw was like a lot more. He was able to perform and understand things better under pressure and during those games when things were being more stressful and all that. And I think just overall he was just like a better leader fit. Whereas, yeah, I mean Damien was good. Don't get me wrong. Like I think he was a good one. He just, I think maybe at times maybe Daps may have been more emotional, you know, and like in the way things like how it handled. And yeah, and I think Tarik also was obviously just like he wasn't a huge fan of how Daps was calling things, and we maybe just thought, you know, hey, like I think maybe there's just a whole new different way of playing Counter Strike out there, and like first step I guess is to just maybe try playing with Stan and see how he calls and how it goes.
Okay, so I got a couple things let's say. I guess the first is that I just remarking on the fact that with Stan being that more centered, just cool demeanor guy, that in the high pressure situations he could still probably call very well and just put together good plans and everything. I think that's incredibly representative of just kind of what we've seen now twice with like Stanislaw type lineups when he's replacing Daps, where it's like the Daps lineup was already good. It had a very good structure. People were performing well in it. But then if you put Stanislaw, who's calling a little bit differently, but is just better under pressure in big moments, then that's going to be the difference between making top 8 versus actually lifting the trophy. So that makes sense.
I mean, like I think like as you could also like just see during those times, like yeah, like Daps would build those teams and like go through all the run work, you know, of doing everything and like making sure everybody has all their strats and like their ways of doing things and the fundamentals and everything's like all down. And then once it came to like the situational things, you know, like being in the mid game, being in the games when the pressure's on, and maybe Damien may have not been making like the right calls or something during that time and like couldn't really figure out the answers. And I think like that's what made Daps good, was maybe he was really good at building teams and creating structure and finding the talent. As you could see, like he found Mixwell and Cirque and all that, scouting out players. So he has a good understanding of how to build a team. But I think like towards the end, like when they wanted to be like a top team, I think that's where Stanislaw could shine and overtake in that essence in the very later end. Whereas Daps was just maybe better at starting and creating the plans and the rosters and the structure and all that. And yeah, I think that's just like kind of like how it folded between them.
Okay. What did the lineup feel like when you were playing on it, when everything came together, when you guys had Stan, you had Tarik, you basically were in what I would consider like the final form of OpTic, and you were able to take down Astralis at E-League. Like, did that feel like it was a gradual thing for like that come up with Stan, or did it just feel like suddenly we're winning title, we're a title contender now?
I mean, I think during that time, I remember the start of the year with Daps and all that. Like it was pretty rusty. Like we couldn't have anything that was going. Then we picked up Tarik, and then we picked up Stan again to call. I think like I don't know. Once we had like that, like we were playing like obviously a lot of scrims, a lot of online matches, like a lot of officials, and then going to LAN events. I remember towards the end of the year, we went towards like a lot of LAN events, and like I think with that team, like we just had like a lot of practice. But I think the important thing is we had a lot of official practice.
Mm-hmm.
Like I remember, I think we went to like Northern Arena, like Montreal, and then like we won the event, I think, and then we went to DreamHack Open in Sweden, and we got last place. And then
that's
that's
why I asked this, because you came in last at a DreamHack Open, and then you win E-League, which is just like it's a DreamHack Open versus E-League. Like the prize pool is like so drastically different, and the quality of competition is also pretty different too. So I mean, how did it just feel like it clicked?
I don't know. Like I said, like I think remember we played like E-League group stage, and like we won. We got past our group stage, and I think we went to Northern Arena Montreal, and then we won that, and then we went to or was vice versa, and then we went to DreamHack, and then like we got last place, and and then we went to playoffs for E-League, and then we won, and then it was, I just think like we had like a lot of official practice, and like I remember during that time we were also at the LAN events, we'd be playing online matches at the same time, I think, as well, for like ECS or whatever, or ESL Pro League as well. But I think like we just had so much official practice that like we started to just get a hang of things like quicker, and like and I think as a 5, like how our team worked out, I think like we just had like a lot of confidence in like how we were turning up and all that. Like I said, I think even with this lineup, like we were considered like a rejects team, like we're all cut from like our previous teams, or like our previous teams are just like weren't good enough or whatever. And I think like we wanted to prove something, that we could be the best, that we could be better than Cloud9 and Liquid during that time. And yeah, no, I don't know. I just like the way we won E-League was just like, yeah, no, we just had like so many reps and just so much practice for our team and our five that like, it's just like, hey, once it's the game for me is just like an event to event basis. It's like you could suck complete ass at one event and then the next one you could be insane. You never know, So yeah, no, I'm not sure like how we came out with it, but all I know is we had a lot of practice, a lot of official practice as well.
Yeah.
So I think that also helped us a lot. And yeah, and also helps. I don't know. I played an insane final during that time. I peaked 7 years ago or whatever, whenever that was. I had I remember during that final I played insane and all that. But overall as a team, I remember we were playing insane. I remember thinking like at that event, I think like our lowest rated player was like, I don't even know, maybe like a 1.20 or something. It's like, dude, if your lowest rated player is at a 1.2 or some shit, it's like, oh, well, what can you do?
Yeah, no one's gonna be beating you at that point then. Yeah. Okay. Okay, I kind of get the way that OpTic worked, I guess. Actually, you know what? The one guy I'd be interested in just hearing your opinion on and kind of what happened to him after that has been is Mixwell. So like, you kind of you already said a little bit about the fact that he's coming in from Europe. He played with a lot of confidence. He even changed roles, it felt like, to fit on your team, and he actually made it work pretty well. Like he was pretty good. I mean, he was damn good on your team.
Yeah.
But then I guess he's kind of like moved. Have you like stayed in touch with him or anything like that? Because I know he's playing Valorant now.
Nah, I mean, I haven't stayed in touch with him. I know like later on in his career, he went on to join like Cloud9 with the daps roster, where he had like daps and like tens or something. It's like
yeah,
I don't know.
Tens
Yeah,
roster.
yeah, they had like an interesting lineup. Yeah, I don't know. I never really kept in contact really with him.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I know he had a little short stint in CS, but now he's in Valorant and he's doing well. I think Hector rubbed off on him with the OpTic, build your brand. Make content, do your thing, and yeah, there he is making a lot of content, doing his thing in Valorant. So I'm happy for him.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the other really successful time that you had with Liquid. Let's talk about the like Grand Slam run you guys had, because obviously that was to this day the fastest time anybody's ever really. Well, it's anybody's probably ever going to win a Grand Slam. If I'm being completely honest, like you guys just smashed through 4 events consecutively. It felt like you guys were on such a complete tear. And let's start it though with the whole like Stewie for Taco thing, because you guys were really quite good with Taco, but then you got Stewie, and I kind of want to know in your eyes, what was the change right there? Like, why did that help you ascend to the level you hit?
So yeah, obviously, I think like a month or 2 or so after I joined Liquid, Steelaga didn't want to play anymore, and then we brought in Taco. We saw Taco had an opening to play with us. But yeah, no, I think with Taco, like when he came into the team, I think he helped me play like a lot better individually as well. Like I know him and I played like bomb sites together and like played a lot of roles together, and with his advice, being on SK, with Fallen and all that, he had a lot of experience and a completely way different understanding of playing the game. And like he played on a team that defined an era of playing a specific way of Counter-Strike. So with him, like he had a lot to teach me during that time, and super grateful playing with Taco. I enjoyed playing with Taco. It was a lot of fun. I think he was a super talented player, and like he was super smart. I see like why the SK players love playing with him, and they wanted him back. But yeah, no, we were playing with Taco. I remember we were playing really well. We had a lot of second place finishes. I know that's like when the start of the trend when we're losing to Astralis all the time and all that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like we're being second places, losing to the best team in the world that nobody else could ever beat. The only reason we're being called up being like, oh, Liquid can't be Astralis is because we'd actually make the fucking finals, whereas all these other teams would just lose to them in the semis and the quarters and be like, oh, it's Liquid's fault, they can't beat them, they're in the final, they can't beat them. It's like, well, we could beat every other team, but we just can't beat Astralis. It's just like that's just the way the thing is, I guess. It's like, yeah. Why are we being put on blast because we can't beat them? It's like you guys can't beat them either, and neither can you guys beat us. So it's like, well, what's the deal here? But during that time,
that's really good.
Yeah. And yeah, during that time, it was just like, yeah, we had a lot of second places, losing to Astralis. Like, I think, and even towards the end of the year, the very last end of the year, we got second, lost to Astralis. It's like we had a lot of good placings, third, fourth, or second placings, a lot of them. And yeah, I mean, I think like going to the next year in 2019, I think we're pretty much keen on keeping the same lineup with Taco and Zeus. But I remember in Odense, the very last event, like we lost to Astralis, and I remember later that night, we just had like a team meeting, and like Zeus and Taco came to us and said, hey, like we don't really want to play here anymore. We we believe like this team is good, like it's an insane team, but we naturally just want to go back to playing on a Portuguese team, you know, like playing on the playing on a Brazilian team speaking Portuguese, you know, speaking their native language, and yeah, they said that, and they're like, okay, like all right. I mean, I completely understand, you know, like I'm always the person that just says like, do what makes you happy. If this is what you believe is the right play to do it, then do it. I'm always gonna be on your side. I'm always gonna support you with any decision you want to make. But yeah, and I think after that we knew Taco and Zeus wanted to go back. So I think during that time we also knew Tarik and Stewie were being cut because they want to go back to a completely Brazilian lineup. So we knew, okay, all right. So now we have an opportunity to get Tarik or Stewie. And I remember we actually talked to Tarik, and yeah, I mean, we talked with Tarik, and Tarik didn't really seem like the right fit for us in terms of just like his mentality and like things he just during the time when we were talking to him, we didn't feel like he was the right fit. And when we were talking to Stewie, I don't know, he just felt like, you know, he just said everything right to us, you know, and like everything in our heads were telling us, all right, Stewie's the right pick, you know, like we're just gonna go with Stewie, and yeah, that's what happened. We got Stewie.
Would you have
And,
said
yeah.
at the time that Tarik was the better player, though?
Mm,
Because it feels like,
I don't.
based off what you're saying, it seems like, you know, the interview question, Stewie was better, and maybe in that way, like a better mental fit, or, but like, was Tarik
Um,
higher until the interview happened?
I'm not sure exactly. I think I actually voted for Tarik originally, like when we actually wanted to make it. But there was something about Stewie and the way he was saying things that people kind of preferred. Like it's like, you know, it's like, I guess it's like showing up to a job interview and like one person seemed more interested than the other. So
Oh.
you're like, all right, maybe this player's more motivated and probably wants more things, blah blah blah, you know. But I remember like I was originally more keen on Tarik, but you know, I mean, it's whatever. We ended up picking up Stewie, and with all the stuff you know, all the things we achieved, I think it was a fine choice.
Yeah, it's hard to argue against those results, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so in that time, you guys picked up Stewie after this. You guys also got adreN as a coach around that time, and actually, yeah, you know what? Like, I think that in the Grand Slams, like in the Liquid Grand Slam, the guy that got the least credit was adreN by the community, by everybody to this
Yeah.
day. But I guess what could you say about his contributions to the lineup?
I mean, Eric. I mean, Eric's a good person. I think, you know, I think he was a great coach. But also the person thing I think is also like very important because I feel like with North American players, a lot of times like sometimes like a lot of North American players might clash or just not get along or, you know, not like agree with the things the coach is saying. And I think with a coach, you also want to make sure you're really comfortable around your players and your players are comfortable around your coach. I just feel like a lot of that helps. And I don't know, Eric. I remember during the time like he's more of like a strategy guy. You know, I think he'd, you know, come up with strats and like, you know, like he did his thing. If things were going wrong, like he'd take pauses and stuff like that. I think like he did very well as like a coach. Like he helped prepare the team in every matter, in every sense. Like even though he was more of a strategy coach, mentally he was always there to, you know, be like, yo, pause. Like what? Why are we doing this? Like why are we acting this way? You know, it's like I think Eric did like everything to the best of his abilities, and I think he did really well. I mean, obviously during that time, I guess coaches, you know, like everybody's gonna put him on like the back burner a little bit, but I think overall, like he did everything he needed as a coach, and you know, it's not like we always demanded things from him. He always naturally stood up and knew what he was supposed to do, and that's what he did. And I think he did an amazing job. So
Hmm. With your guys' run though with the Grand Slam, a lot of people do like to characterize it as you guys were, and I can attest to what I felt at the moment, which was that you guys just felt like the highest firepower team ever. Like everybody on your team had the capability to either win the MVP, it felt like, or to just win a whole like map by themselves. And beyond that, it just felt like there's probably three guys that are gonna drop a 20 bomb in this game. So like what did it? I mean, that's kind of where I think people have some questions about what adreN contributed, or even the strats in general, like even the calling or anything like that. Because when you guys were succeeding, it did feel like a lot of it was just due to flat out great firepower. But yeah, how did you perceive it?
I mean, I remember people would even say like, "Oh, like Liquid had no strategies; they're just all insane
Right.
individuals, and they just won." And I'm just like, that's definitely no way in any way of playing Counter Strike you're ever gonna be the best just by that alone. No, like we had plenty of strategy and like ideas with Eric and Nitro, and obviously, of course, with Stewie. I think during that time, I think Stewie was very vocal. Mid rounding and saying like a lot of things that we should be doing. Like Nitro and Eric will say the game plans like at the start, like what we should do, and Nitro will make the first call. And I think for the most part, and when it comes to the mid rounding, I think Stewie was doing a lot of it. But I think if you want to be a top team, it can't always be on the IGL. Like you need players to contribute and like kind of paint the picture to what the best outcome would be. So, yeah, no, I mean for the most part, it was mainly like Stewie mid gaming and all that, and yeah, no, but we had plenty of strategies, we had plenty of ideas. There's no way, but yeah, no, individually, I just think we were insane. I think like during that time, it was just everybody was playing to the best of their abilities and they're just all peaking. Like during that time, like yeah, just like Twist was like seeing 3 people crossing long with AKs from like CT spawn. It's just like we're just doing crazy things. Anybody could pick up the op. Of course, we didn't have a dedicated opper. Like we're not like Navi where we have simple. We're not Straws where we had device. Or Cloud9 Shiro. Like we had nothing. We just had players that, hey, yo, you feeling the op today? Yeah, I'm feeling the op today. All right, like you want to op? All right, you op. All right, we want to run a double op on Inferno. Okay, let's run double op on Inferno. It's like we were just doing everything we were feeling, and individually that team was just was so talented. I think that was the most. Obviously, I'm biased a little bit, but honestly, if I'm being pretty real, honestly, I think that was the most individual skilled team I think I've ever played on and witnessed, in my opinion, because some of the shit we were doing on that team was just insane. Some things, like FaZe and like, the top teams couldn't even do with their individuals. I think, yeah, it was just insane.
Yeah. Okay. That's kind of I think how a lot of us did see it, but they're definitely. I mean, I think where the poor characterization is of it is that there were no strats, because obviously you guys were running setups and strats, and there were different ways that you guys were piecing rounds together. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean that's ridiculous. Plenty of strats coming from Eric, Nick, and Jake, and everybody. There's plenty of ideas, plenty of things to follow. Just people just I guess just weren't paying attention. People were just so blinded by all the headshots and insane plays we were making, they just couldn't see that shit. So.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what happens with people like with G2 today a little bit, because it's like it with how much firepower they have today, it does feel like is HooXi even calling anything, or are they just killing people? But it's like no, they're clearly like putting together.
Yeah,
like
I mean, of course there's gonna be strategies, and like HooXi is gonna be calling things to do, and like his players are just gonna get headshots with the calls that he's saying. So everyone's like, oh damn, the players are insane. Like they're the one getting the headshots. Like well, HooXi probably pointed them in that direction anyways. So it's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Okay. Yeah. How about the beginning of the end of this Liquid lineup though, because you guys won so many events. You won what, Sydney, Pro League, Dallas, like Masters Dallas, Cologne, Chicago, and then there was that player break, and then you guys came into the Berlin Major, and I think that people kind of, when they were watching that event, it did feel like you guys were much more mortal than what everybody was used to seeing. You guys, well, you dropped a couple maps in the legend stage in the Swiss system. You lost a map to NRG. You lost one to a Vanguard, which at the time, I get, the Vanguard loss at that moment felt pretty bad, but then actually once people kind of knew the trajectory of a Vanguard and Jame-led teams, it probably feels a little less bad. But still, this was a tournament where you guys coming into it were the heaviest favorites. Like everybody thought if the player break didn't affect you, you were gonna take home a trophy, take home the major, to put the cherry on top of that run you guys just had. But then obviously that wasn't the case. So why in your opinion did you guys not take this one all the way home?
I think it originally starts at the beginning of like our Grand Slam. Actually, it's just like I remember we played Sydney and we won Sydney, and I think like after that we had a few weeks until our next event, and then we won our next event, and then after that it was just like back to back to back to win the Grand Slam. So I think during that time, like we had just so much momentum and so much confidence, and there weren't any breaks. We were just going event to event. So like anytime a team wanted to maybe like take a break and like, oh, like let's try to do this or let's get our individual form better, it's like they couldn't. We're going event to event, and we were just plowing through like every team. I think just like individually we were playing insane all as individually as 5 players, and we all just had insane confidence. Like our mental was like nobody's gonna shake us. Like we're just like insane, and we just rode the high of momentum and the confidence wave of going to these events. All right, everybody's trash. We're just hitting every headshot, owning everybody, and yeah, and then I think, and then again it comes to the very end, and we have the player break, and then we have the major, and then I think that's a big reason why we fell off is because the player break. And people stopped playing Counter Strike. They had other things to do. I know Russ Twist was dealing with personal things in his life, that he had to handle, so he couldn't even play Counter Strike during that time. And and me personally, I was probably trying to chill as well and not play too much Counter Strike. And then we come from the player break ends, and then we're coming to this event, and yeah, individually we're not anywhere near what we were before coming to player break. Like the break slowed our momentum, it slowed our confidence. We're a completely different team individually at that point. I think we had good strategies and great structure. I think that's what was able to pull us through and make it to playoffs at Berlin instead of just bombing out. So yeah, I just think individually, everybody reset. Everybody took a break. Everybody reset, and individually, all the confidence and the momentum that we had from playing all these events back to back, it just disappeared. And yeah, and then we just needed to reset. And yeah, unfortunately, we reset too slow.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's I'll say this. That seems like something that now I'm hearing, and I'll move forward to kind of what we're getting with the current Liquid lineup. Is that it feels like coming out of breaks, it's been like a couple times now. It feels like I've heard the whole like we're not really like jump starting the break. Like we're not gonna play like 4 weeks before the break ends. Like as a team, like you guys seem to just take your breaks pretty seriously, and then you guys ramp up just by playing events. Like I'd say the beginning of this year at the Blast Blast Spring groups that you guys played, like it was not the same Liquid that we got at Kato where you were able to take down FaZe. Like what I guess, yeah, just like as a transition point here, like with the current Liquid lineup, like what's your guys like philosophy, just like when do you guys start practicing again?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, obviously it depends. Like when you come back from like player breaks and like holidays and all that. So, like I know like with the Christmas break and like the winter break, we just like I remember we finished Abu Dhabi. It was like the very last event, and it was like finished on like the 19th or something. And like we came home on like the 20th or whatever, and then we played. I think the official break would end on the 16th. I think during that time for this year, at the very start, it ended like on the 16th or 17th. And we took a break, I think, like all the way up until the 10th or like 11th, and then like played scrims for like a week or so, or like a little under a week, and then played Blast. But then again, but we just had like a different mindset going into Blast, because Blast was like also like, hey, like like if we mess up here, it's not the end of the world, you know. But like if we want to try new things, now is the time. We don't want to try new things at Katowice. That'd be like the dumbest idea ever.
Right.
What we should just do it during a group stage event where we have plenty of chances to play other teams, like that. And hey, worst case happens, we play Showdown. And unfortunately, I mean, obviously, none of us want to play Showdown online in NA and Counter Strike and all that. And I live all the way up in the northwest fucking of Canada, so my internet's terrible, high ping. But I mean, we try to start reasonably, like if it comes to like the break or like when official player breaks are done, we usually start like a week before, because there might be an event starting right at the very end of or very start of the player break or whatever, or at the very end of the player break. And then, or it's just like we just pick accordingly, at times. Like if there's an event coming up, we just need to prepare a little earlier.
Okay, let's talk about the current team, because there's been a lot of conjecture, and there's been a lot of just kind of assumptions being made about I'd say the chain of command, because with you guys, you said it earlier, you have a lot of cooks in the kitchen, and I think that as it stands, the narrative that has just been most jumbled is like who's always doing what for Liquid in terms of calling, because we know that Yakinder is a pretty loud voice. We know that Nitro is the in-game leader. daps is doing, his coaching duties too. So how do you judge it? Like, okay, let's do it first with practice. Like, so when you guys come to practice, how much is like who's bringing what, and like how much?
So obviously, like when we go to practice, like anybody could bring anything up to them if they want to bring anything special or anything to the table. But for the most part, it's mainly Damien, daps, figuring out the scheduling the practices, and like asking us like what type of, you want us to scrim more today? Do you want us to talk more today? Yeah, so like he'll be in charge of finding the scrims, and he'll also be one of the people that comes up with things, for like the practice. Like, so obviously before we play scrims, we have like theory hours where like we'll talk for a couple of hours and bring things that we want to practice during the scrims and have our goals set for the scrims. That we're not just wasting time and we're actually trying things. So yeah, so Damien's doing all
Could you say
that.
what like an example goal is? Because I don't think many fans would know like what is that like.
I mean, it's just like mainly it's like if you come up with a strategy, completely new strategy, or you steal another strategy from another team, you need to obviously have the roles set, and like who wants to do what. So like we're gonna say like, all right, we're gonna do this strategy. We're gonna run G2 this scrim or something. We're gonna call it G2. We stole a strat from G2. We call it G2 or something. It's like, all right, we're gonna run this G2 strat that we took. We dry ran it. Okay, like if they're NAF, like you're gonna do JKS's role because he does this shit on this side of the map, blah blah. But yeah, no, so like we'll just watch a game and then we'll dry run it like just in a server by ourselves, just practicing the strat and all that. And then obviously we make sure that we're prepared and we're not making mistakes for actually when we're in the scrim running the strat. So, and then we're running it in the scrim and we're trying it. If it works, it works. Okay, it's kind of sick. All right, we're not going to do it anymore. We know it's good. It works. And then, all right, we're going to come with other strategies. And there's also plenty of other things to do. Like there's defaults. Like we have, yeah, sorry, what was it?
But how about more like that's like a T side objective, but what about like a CT side one? Is it like map control or reaggressions or regression or what?
I mean, you could have like aggression at the start of CT. Like some CTs will have like strats where like they do something aggressive. It's like I know there's like a strat like on Nuke where like G2 likes to run where like they have like two people ramp and one guy gets close and like he's in the smoke ramp and like he'll molly deep into like the radio room and the guy deep ramp's gonna flash, and as that's happening like another player's gonna peek through hut and like kill the guy running out of radio room because he's mollied and flash, and then he's gonna peek from out, kill him, and the other guy's gonna go through door. Like I don't know, there's a bunch of things you'll see from other teams. There'll be things you can come up with with your own mind and imagination, and yeah, no, there's plenty of things that we need to, learn and practice and dry run and do things. It's like I said, there's like, T side, like there's strats, but there's also like defaults. So like, all right, we're going to play a whole round like this, but then there's going to be another version where there's one guy here and there's another guy here, or we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to do it at a different timing. Instead of doing it at 1:10, it's going to happen at 30 seconds. It's like there's so many different things you need to practice and figure out, and yeah.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I get it in terms of just because I have some competitive experience, but also like with, I'm just kind of like now wondering. So when people are bringing these to the table, I guess I'll kind of wrap back to that other one. Is like I'm sure daps is bringing some, Yukindar is bringing some, and Nitro is it actually divided? Do you think like 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, or what?
I mean, I think they all do as much as they can, for them to, until they reach their limit, if they're tired, or sitting like OpTic are not doing too much, but like, I know Damien, like daps, Yukindar, and Nitro, like, there'll be times where like they're in the practice room until like 2 or 3 a.m. And they're just watching stuff or studying the opponent that we have to play the next day or something, and they're just going through every round and like they're talking about which strats that we have that will be good, or and then like they see something like, let's make a strat, this will be good to counter this specific way of how they're playing. So like you already have like Yukindar, Elige, Nitro, and their coach Daps already doing so much leading and so much structure planning, and Elige and Yukindar are trying to bring up like mid rounds or mid gaming and doing all this stuff where it's just like, all right, I already have so many people already doing this. Me personally, I don't have to do too much because it's like. And me personally, like I don't really care too much about playing the way I want to play. I'm not like that guy that's just gonna freak out and be like, dude, it's not the way I like it and the way it's gonna do. Like, you want to play a specific way you want to play? Okay, I'll play the way you want to play. I'm gonna think like you and play like you because I want me to be on the same page as you, and you already knowing that I'm on the same page as you. So it's like you just do whatever you need to do and tell me whatever you want me to do. I'll follow it.
Okay.
And, like pretty much like that's how it is for me. And with oSee, I think he's like somewhat the same, but not too much, because I think like with oSee, like he's an opper, like he has like a lot more freedom, like if he wants to start here and do an op play here, push here, get an op play here, op's very important. You look at the current day of Counter-Strike, you see every opper is like the best performing player on pretty much almost every team. You got Brokey, you got Simple, you got Shiro, you got everybody, Monacy on G2 as well. So it's like he's obviously gonna have like a lot more freedom to do things. Whereas like me, I kind of need to just follow just the strict guidelines of lurking. All right, you guys are gonna take control here, make plays here, okay, and then you're gonna run up here. All right, that's my timing to run out here. Okay, bam, bam, shoot people in the back, or whatever. You need me to group. All right, I'll group. Come in a group. It's
Yeah.
like nothing too crazy, but like I said, there's already so many people coming up with so many ways to play already on this team to the point where like I kind of need to sit here and make sure I'm doing my job, getting the kills that I need to get. Because if I'm not, then I guess I'm not really doing my job too well.
Right. That's yeah. If you're not coming up with the strategies, at least you gotta hold your gun.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about let's dive in a little bit to oSee, because I think he's of all the people on Liquid, I think it's fair to say right now that he's under the most scrutiny, because he'll actually have some games here and there where he'll really pop off, deliver a lot in terms of impact. But then other games kind of like, he's a little quieter in the server. So what have you seen? How about we'll start with like oSee's progression. Like what do you think he is today versus when he first joined Liquid?
I mean, obviously I just think like he's just like more experienced and getting more comfortable. But I think like when oSee first joined the team, I think he was a pretty good like influence, and like just like the way like listening to how he would talk and the way he would bring things, like he'd be more confident like coming into the team, whereas like other players in the team, maybe it was our fault when we did things wrong and putting people in the positions that they're in. Like for example, I think like when we brought Grim in, obviously when we had Stewie, Elige, Fallen, and Moses and adreN like as our coach, like we already had all these people already coming with the ideas and all that, and like the way to play the game. Whereas like when we picked up Grim, Mike, we just like, all right, like you're just gonna play like anchor roles, just listen to what the people have to say and just follow the rules, or not follow the rules, but like just listen to what's going on, play your game, just play the anchor sites or whatever, and just do your thing.
It was kind of like it felt like from the outside it was like a shut up and don't F this up for the rest of us.
I mean, that's like unfortunate. That's kind of like pretty much like how it was. It was mainly just play your role as an anchor role, get kills, do your thing. We'll try to do our best to do everything else as productive as possible and the best as possible. But yeah, no, with oSee, so obviously with like Mike and Grim, like there was just like he didn't have to say or bring too much to the team, and like say or change a lot of things for us. It was mainly like, but with oSee coming in, him being our opper and all that, I think like when he came in, he was just like, hey, like I want to do this, like I like playing like this. If there's any way like we do this, can we make it happen like this? Like he actually came in and said like what he wanted to do. He wasn't like afraid to, like I can understand some players like they might come in and be like, oh, it's like NAFFLY, Fallen, they're gods or whatever, like I'm just gonna listen to what they have to say. They're clearly the better players, so I'm just gonna listen to what they have to say, But I think with oSee also during our time when oSee came in, our team was obviously a lot more different. We had a few more changes, but it was nice to see him come in and take charge on like what he wants to do, how he wants to play, how he wants to do things. And I'm like, okay, that's good, that's awesome. So he was very confident coming into the team, and he wasn't really starstruck or like baffled by anything. So, but yeah, I don't know. I think he just needs some time to like adjust being a completely new team. Because I remember even on Extra Salt, I remember watching his games and like seeing him play like on that team, even versus tier 2 European teams, which are still really good. He was still being super confident, making like these crazy plays, having high impact rounds with the op. And I could see he was doing the same here on our team when he first joined, but I think he was just more uncomfortable just because he was playing with all these different new players that he looked up to, and all that. Whereas like back on Extra, he's just playing with his friends, like his homies, JT and Floppy and all that.
Yeah.
Just having a good time and just trying his best. Whereas like now it just felt maybe just more different for him. So I think like during the start, I think he was more uncomfortable, and like he didn't have a lot of experience playing against full tier 1 opponents. So, I think he was struggling a little bit, but I think as of late, I think he's been doing really well. I saw even at Katowice, like he was having like huge games where like he would be popping off individually, and we're like, damn, playing insane. Like, like you can see like the hard work and the progression that he's putting in, and it's paying off. And yeah, I think we have more oSee to see, and I think there's a lot better plays for him to make.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think like one big moment for me with oSee was just like how well he did in the FaZe series, for example, because I think like if oSee performs almost kind of like how I'd say like kind of like the haters for oSee would think like, in that kind of moment, though that's the typical moment where oSee's gonna choke or bottle up and not actually be that impactful. But in terms of on the maps you guys won, like oSee was like I'll just say ratings here. It's like 1.13 on one map and then 1.23 on the other, and those are the ones you guys won. So like, you know, it's obviously has a lot of impact. He had you know, more op kills than Brokey in the series and everything, and I think that like it's just like with oSee, I think people are so accustomed, and this is almost just like a general comment, is just like people are so accustomed to seeing the oppers, like you're saying, be the highest rated players, like always just dominating these games and everything like that. And I think, at least from my end, it's safe to say like oSee isn't really there. He's not like, you know, an HLTV top 12 player or anything like that, or top 15 player. He's like, but he's still been performing admirably, and I'd say like it's been pretty consistent progression in terms of impact. Like even though pure numbers, I'd say, well, actually he's doing pretty well lately, actually, like last few months and everything like that. But I would say like it's just like in the beginning it was just kind of like, I think people wanted so much more because, and this is a little bit unfair to oSee, I think a lot of people in North America were saying like oSee is the next big opera out of America, but like being the next big opera out of America doesn't mean you're the next big opera in the world. Like that's two very different things.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I just think like the first year, like when we brought in oSee and we also brought in Shocks, I think during that time as well, when so they both came at the same time, and also Nitro also came back from Valorant, so you know like he had some adjusting to come back to during that time as well. So now that I think about it, like yeah, like the team was completely different, completely new. I think like that's like why he also struggled during that time, because I think just like as a team, like we were struggling like a lot more, like we had like myself where like I was gonna go to a completely different team, but you know ended up staying. And I think when I came back, like they already had Shocks, which was like, you know, they want him to play like his lurker, be comfortable, play Shocks roles, you know. Where then like I came back and I think they're cool with it, with me coming back, of course. Or they wanted me back, but I think that also just like with with that lineup, like there was just like there wasn't necessarily like role overlap with Shocks and I. We had like different roles, but I think in terms of play style, we were very similar, and so like it just didn't make sense during that time. I mean, especially like on paper, it didn't make sense with that team. It was just like, all right, we have this team, and we're just gonna try to make it work and see what happens, you know. But unfortunately, it didn't really work out to how we wanted it to work out. And I think just during that time, there was just so much like construction, just building with the
Yeah.
team and just going up and down. It was just like it's hard for maybe oSee to perform in that, you know, that aspect when your team's not playing super well, and especially he's more of a rookie, you know, he's more inexperienced. And then I think when we brought in Yakinder, the difference is like now with just oSee from then and bringing in Yakinder, it's just like the the team just makes a lot more sense on paper. We have two of our like we have Yakinder, who's a super aggressive entry player. We have John Liege, who's also pretty aggressive, but likes being more of that second, third guy in. And then we have Nitro, our IGL, who's gonna do pretty much anything as a rifler. And then you have me, who's like more of like this slow lurker, passive player, and you know picks up anchor rolls or whatever needs to do anything. And then oSee's opping, like so everything on paper just made like a lot more sense. And I think like ever since like Yakinder joined, I think like he's slowly been making better progress on just how to play individually at times. And I think that now, as you can see, just coming into this year, I think he's been playing like a lot better. I mean, at least in Katowice, like he played phenomenal. I remember he had the huge Spirit game, he had the huge Phase game, and even versus Vitality on stage, like he was playing phenomenal. I think he was. Yeah. I think he has so much potential still there, and I think people haven't seen the best of oSee yet, I think, but I think you've seen some good work from him. But I think you'll see even better in the future.
Cool. Words of confidence coming out from you. Okay, I have two things that I want to finish up on here. One of which you already kind of hinted at, which was the you said you were kind of maybe going to join another team. I think we all know that the rumor has been OG, or not OG, EG, and so are there any details you can reveal about that whole process? Because it felt like, I mean, I don't know, it felt like you were pretty set on going there, and then like you even kind of said there, like then you decided to just come back to Liquid.
Yeah, so I think originally like I didn't really want to play like with Liquid towards the end of 2021 too much anymore. I don't know, me personally, I was just like having some issues with how the team was being ran and just like how it operated at times, or like how some players could maybe act during some times. And I was like, maybe I just want to start new somewhere with different players, because at this point it's getting too frustrating, it's getting too annoying. But no, for I think But yeah, no, after that I was like, all right, that's like the reason I want to change. And then also another reason I wanted to change is like I wanted to play with daps again. I wanted to play with Breeze and Cirque. In the past, people. I mean, obviously people don't know this, but it's a little bit down memory lane. It's like I think like even after I first joined Liquid in 2018, I remember after a couple months I actually wanted to switch and I actually wanted to play on Energy with the daps, Ethan, Breeze, and Cirque, and take Fugly's spot on Energy because I felt like that team would be like insane. Like we're all 5 players that got along really well, and I think we could achieve like a lot more than what I think I could achieve now on Liquid. And I was always trying to join and play with them over the years, but you know it was always hard contractually with Liquid and Energy, you know, making trades or swaps or anything during that time. And yeah, and yeah, I come back now in the EG lineup towards the end of 2021. I remember my contract was ending, and I was like, all right, that's actually my opportunity to kind of maybe just start something new. And so first it was supposed to be like me, Ethan, Breeze, Cirque, and Daps on the EG lineup. But then we tried talking to Ethan, and we were aware Ethan didn't want to leave Valorant to play Counter Strike because I think he felt like Counter Strike he doesn't have a lot of time at home, and he prefers to be at home. Ethan, whereas like in Valorant it's more chill. You know, you go to one place now, I guess, for a little bit, then you can go back home. You know, but yeah, so Ethan didn't want to join and come back, so that was like, all right, like maybe it's maybe not the best to do this. But then also when I was talking to EG management, I'm not gonna go into detail talking to EG management, but that was just like some of the worst management I think I've ever talked to probably in my life. I mean, you know, I mean, not to be too blunt about it, but I mean, EG surely knows that as well. They're clearly not handling their team properly, like at all. And me talking to them for like about like an hour instantly like changed my mind. I was like, dude, Liquid is light years ahead of this organization, and like I think I'd be an idiot to go and join this team. And yeah, no, I mean, obviously EG is a phenomenal org. They have plenty of history, but I think just the management and the way they're running things now is just not the way. Because like I said, I talked to them for an hour, and I was just like, dude, this is I ain't joining this. This is a disaster.
Okay.
So I was like, yeah. And then I came back to Liquid, and I was like, okay, like, all right, like I'm down to make things work. Let's just talk about it. Let's get things going.
Okay, okay, that's great. Okay, that's that confirms a lot of what has also been put out there in public at this point from other parties. Okay, last question. Don't need to keep you for too much longer here. Surprising you with this one a little bit. I've said this before on like another podcast. Is I think that you should just move to Europe just to like get the most out of your career and everything like that. I feel but like, have you given that idea much thought?
Yeah, I mean, actually, yeah, no, I think about it from time to time. Actually, I think like, I mean, I don't think there's like really an issue saying this. It's just like I think at one point in my career, I hope to play on a full 5-man like or in a 4 5 like full European lineup and play like in Europe. Yeah, no, I just feel like you know, I just feel like with playing with European teams it's this completely different mindset. It's completely different, and again, like I'd get to play in Europe and play Counter Strike full time in Europe. Whereas the thing is, like I know that's just bothered me and annoying me is just playing in North America is with like how we are. It's like we have to fly back and forth, you know, sometimes, and we might like you know, and it's just hard to be flying back and forth because you fly during this time and like you can't practice or like you're gonna practice North American teams while Europeans are still just practicing scrimming European players, same old every day, you know, where it's just like okay, I gotta fly home, adjust to jet lag or handle any personal things I need to handle, and then all right, try to find scrims in North America and play them. But then again, the players in North America aren't even playing the exact same way as the European players are playing, and they don't have the same exact understanding as the European players are. So pretty much me practicing in North America is just essentially just a waste of time. It's kind of just for me to just I don't know, just
it's almost like you're just giving back by practicing in North America. You're just helping the teams beneath Liquid, I'd say. Which
don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Like I'd love to do that, play and practice, teach NA players and just teach them to play better and all that. But at the same time, like I'm like halfway done my career, I guess, essentially, you know, or, you know, once you're 24, 25, you're technically almost done, I guess. You know, I started playing professional when I was like 18, you know, being paid to play.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it's like I still want to enjoy my prime years and actually achieve things. And because I feel like there's a lot more to achieve, I think it'd be kind of sad to just think about, oh, I had this good year in 2019 and that was it. You know, hopefully I could come back and, you know, perform and play better, and maybe play on a European team in the future. I think that'd be like a lot of fun because, I mean, as you can see with the inspiration of Twist and
Yeah.
what he's done on FaZe, it's like he's doing a phenomenal job, and I spend a lot of time talking with him and like how is it playing with European Counter Strike and all that blah blah blah. And yeah, no, I ultimately believe one day, obviously not now, I'm playing on Liquid and I love being on Liquid and playing for them. I hope one day I get to play like on a top European team and can actually try my best, and don't have to waste time flying back and forth worrying about North America or any other obligations. I'm just there to play European Counter Strike, and I'm there to win, and I'm there to raise trophies, and that's all I want to do. So hopefully one day, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I too recognize it was just better for my life to just move away from. I was living in LA, sometimes even Hawaii, and then I actually did that for the most recent blast thing where I flew from my parents' place in Hawaii all the way to Copenhagen, and I had to cast 2 BO3s upon landing, and it was like, this is why I moved to London. Like, this is like it just works really well like that. But
I mean,
yeah,
I was gonna say like, just like for the most part, it's just like we already spent so much time in Europe playing in Europe. Like, I'm already pretty accustomed to it. Like, I don't care. Honestly, I could live anywhere in the world. Just give me a mouse and keyboard and I'll play. I never really get like homesick or anything like that. But yeah, no, it's just like we already spent so much time being in Europe. It's just honestly me coming back home all the time is more of just like an annoyance. It's just like an obstacle to kind of get around. It's like, okay, you're going back home, but you're not really gaining anything by going home. But I mean, obviously you have time to relax and be at your home, which is always nice. But I don't know. I always told people like I treat this shit like the NBA. It's like there's top European players that are playing in their basketball leagues and they want to be the best. They got to go to the NBA and they want to live in North America and be the best, make money and play the best. You got to be in North America. You got to play there. It's like that's just how it works. That's how I see it. And like I said, yep, who knows? Maybe one day there's a European team in store for me one day in the future, and hopefully I get a chance.
Well, I for selfish reasons want you to just make it happen on Liquid and just be hyper competitive and just try to and start winning some more trophies. But no, thank you so much, NAF, for hopping on. I'm really glad we got to do this, and hopefully we do it in the future because it's gonna be fun to see where things go for you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, can't wait to see. Hopefully, good year for Liquid ahead. We'll see.
All right, yeah, okay. I'm hoping the same, but that's gonna be it for us. Yeah.